We're going to begin by calling the September 24th, 2018 Royal Oak City Commission meeting to order. We're first going to begin with an invocation given by Commissioner Macy, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand if you can.
We are grateful tonight to be part of the incredible Royal Oak community, a community full of individuals speaking up and working together to make our corner of the world a better place. We are lucky to be part of this body that has the opportunity to make choices that can improve the lives of residents, including our own family and friends. Tonight, may we listen carefully to the concerns of the residents and the issues before us. May we reflect thoughtfully on the best course of action. May we discuss differences respectfully, and may we have the wisdom to steer the city towards an ever brighter future. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This brings us to item number 4 on tonight's agenda, which is public comment. Before we begin public comment, I just have a few things to make everyone aware of. As you know, the City Commission values and relies on the input of our fellow citizens to make decisions, as articulated in Commissioner Macy's invocation. And now is the time set aside for the public to address the City Commission on any city-related issue, whether it's on the agenda or not. I do ask that comments be directed to the Commission as a whole and not to individual commissioners. In addition to public comment, there will be one public hearing at tonight's meeting. If you came here to comment on Wahlburgers plan of operation, you can wait until that public hearing opens up and you can comment at that time. If you wish to speak tonight here at public comment or at the public hearing, please wait until recognized by me, the mayor. Come up to the podium. For the record, we'll ask that you state your name and address. Please be mindful that we do want to hear from anyone who wishes to speak tonight, so comments are limited to 3 minutes or less. And we have a podium up here, or we have a timer at the podium to help you keep track of your time. If you don't wish to speak tonight, that's all right. Please don't hesitate to contact us at any time with your questions or concerns. Please note that the City Commission won't respond directly to questions during public comment. However, we are taking notes and will address the questions when the agenda topic is discussed, or refer it to the proper city department if the matter isn't scheduled to be discussed on the agenda this evening. Our city manager is also taking notes, and I know he does a good job following up when people have inquiries about certain things going on in the city. So with that, who's first to speak tonight? Mr. Hallett.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Tom Halleck. I live at 210 North Center, and I'm here tonight to speak against the ROGO, or Connect Royal Oak, bus proposal. With all due respect to the group that devised it, this is not a complete proposal. You're asking voters for millions of dollars when no one even knows where the stops will be at this point. Royal Oak Connect website says there's plenty of money in the budget for changes. That means you're asking for too much money. It is not suitable to take kids to school, as there won't be enough space. Parents will also have to pay hundreds on top of the tax, and there won't be stoplights requiring traffic to stop, making it dangerous for the children. The proposal claims SMART will buy buses for seniors, but they haven't replaced a broken one in 2 years, so that rings fairly hollow. And I urge voters to vote no against ROGO.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. Who's next? Saw a hand here in the aisle. Light blue shirt. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, it's Erica Sykes, 325 Lexington Boulevard. I am part of a grassroots group of concerned Royal Oak citizens who call themselves Royal Oakers for Accountability and Responsibility, or ROAR for short. We are a large and growing group of Royal Oak citizens who come from all different political persuasions and share a love for our city and a concern that our local government is not representing our best interests. We want to protect the quality and charm of our neighborhoods and downtown and see that our tax dollars are being spent responsibly. We want our schools, not our city, to be responsible for providing safe and reliable school transportation for our kids. We want our seniors to be able to age in place and not be taxed out of their homes. We recommend that the city vote to use a small amount of our $14 million budget surplus to fund improving senior transit without adding to their taxes. We want a common sense approach as to when sidewalks need to be replaced. Sidewalks should be assessed as good and safe and on an as-needed basis versus the complicated number system we use today, and permit fees need to be reduced to make it easier for residents to use their own contractor versus one picked for them by the city. We are troubled that the citizens of Royal Oak are only getting one side of the story in regards to the proposals on the November ballot. The public transit and sidewalk millage, which if both pass, will increase our city taxes by more than 10%. I would like to invite those Royal Oak citizens who share the same concerns I and my fellow ROAR members have to join us tomorrow night at the Royal Oak Elks Club between 5 and 7:30 p.m. for a meeting to learn more about the November ballot proposals and to help us raise funds to educate the public. A suggested donation of $20 at the door is requested, and it includes heavy appetizers and a cash bar. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sykes. Who's next? Yes, sir, right here. Is that Mr. Lockwood? Your hat makes you look a little incognito there, sir.
Rich Lockwood, resident at 520 South Kenwood, also a business owner of Motor City Gas Whiskey. I'd heard earlier today that the new food truck ordinance might be on the agenda today, so while I'm not as prepared as I'd like to be, I wanted to swing by and at least voice my support for that topic. If a vote is planned for tonight, ideally, we would like to see it delayed, just to give us a little bit of time to clear up a bit of confusion that I think is surrounding this topic. Additionally, I'd like to offer my time to meet with any of the commissioners outside of this meeting to better explain why we believe this ordinance is good for Royal Oak and why we don't see it as a threat to the local restaurant community. In a nutshell, we feel this ordinance will do a lot to help our business grow, but will also make our downtown more attractive to other businesses like craft distilleries, who almost always rely on vendors like food trucks to help offset the very expensive cost of craft beverage manufacturing. Our local competitors in cities such as Ferndale, Detroit, Dearborn, and Ann Arbor, just to name a few, all use food trucks to support their events, which then draw incremental out-of-town foot traffic to their downtowns. We intend to use food trucks in a very similar event-based fashion, not as a replacement for a kitchen to provide a regular food option to customers, but rather as a tool to generate excitement and to draw new out-of-town foot traffic to our city that everyone will then benefit from. Thank you for your time and for your consideration in our request.
Thank you, Mr. Lockwood. Who's next? I see a hand in the back in a blue shirt. Is that Ms. Hennessy? I can't tell. I think it is.
Good evening. Carol Hennessy, 258 East 12 Mile Road. I would like to thank the DDA for all they're doing in helping repairing the Veterans Monument. They have come to the Veterans Monument rescue, and they have also made sure that the area is getting watered after the city manager had the water turned off. So I really like to thank them for all they're doing to protect that area. On another subject, ROGO/Connect Royal Oak, in my opinion, is not fulfilled, has not fulfilled work, has not been filled out so that we know how we can use it. I cannot say that until the citizens know exactly how it's going to run, how can we vote on it? 1.25 mils is a lot of money for our citizens to be used for maybes. This might happen, or maybe that might happen. And also the letter that the commission plans to send out to the residents about the millages, I don't believe is necessary. It's another way of spending our taxpayers' money. It's going to be in all the newspapers and on the ballot, and I think that would be sufficient for our citizens. And if they need more information, they can always contact City Hall and get more information. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hennessy. Who's next? Is Mr. Ellison I see there in the aisle?
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Brian Ellison. I live at 26029 Delton in Madison Heights. I just came here to read a statement of a notice that I am in the process of delivering to your police officers. This letter is intended to serve as actual notice that the Royal Oak Police Department is currently in possession of stolen property. On August 23rd, 2018, Officer Corey Steers, likely under the direction of Lieutenant Al Carter, likely under the direction of Police Chief Corrigan O'Donohue, removed or took a pistol, and it describes a pistol and ammunition from the person of Brian Ellison. At the time of the taking, the pistol was legally licensed and owned by Brian Ellison. See Exhibit A. Brian Ellison did not consent to the taking and affirms this lack of consent by signature below. Officer Steers and Lieutenant Carter used force against Brian Ellison and were armed with dangerous weapons capable of causing death or serious injury. Officer Steers placed the stolen property in a patrol car and transported it to the Royal Oak Police Station. Larceny is a specific intent crime. It's required that the intent be to permanently deprive the owner of the property. On September 20th, Brian Ellison was notified via first-class mail that the Royal Oak Police Department intends to permanently deprive him of his property. See Exhibit B. Note the ruling People v. Harrison, in which the court stated that the intent to permanently deprive includes the retention of property without the purpose to return it within a reasonable time, or the retention of property with the intent to return the property on the condition that the owner pays some compensation for its return. There's probable cause to believe that several members of the Royal Oak Police Department have engaged in conspiracy to commit larceny from the person of a firearm, and it lists the several felonies that are included in that. You've now been served with actual notice of facts that give you reason to know or believe that the pistol has been stolen. You have a legal obligation to return the stolen property immediately and to investigate and pursue legal charges against all individuals who have conspired to commit these felonies. Each officer within the Royal Oak Police Department has constructive possession of the pistol. If you fail in your fiduciary duties to return the stolen pistol and file appropriate criminal charges, you're engaged in conspiracy to conceal stolen firearm and ammunition, and then it lists the statutes and the felonies for those. There's some additional detail. I've made copies for you guys. There's no intent for me to come here and give you guys any additional statement because I know you guys aren't paying attention anyway. But I did print out copies of everything, the report narrative that I filed with the police station when I insisted that they take my police report on this incident, which they initially refused, and a copy of the letter that I am providing as actual notice to the officers, and copies of the exhibits. I've also included, for your benefit, copy of MCL 28.422, which is cited in the city's letter to me in which they refused to return my pistol. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Allison. You want to submit those copies to City Clerk Hallish, she can get them to us.
For everybody except you.
Thank you. All right, who's next this evening? Yes, ma'am. Yep. Oh, okay. No, you're fine. Come on up. You're next.
Margaret Cope, 538 Mount Vernon. I'm here in regard to Agenda Item 9, recommendations for non-paving and alternatives for Mount Vernon Boulevard. I am here to request that discussion of this item be tabled until the October 22nd Commission meeting in order to ensure that all impacted homeowners of Mount Vernon, Custer, and Washington have the opportunity to read, review, and discuss the information and findings that were presented and outlined in the letter from Greg Russell to the Commission dated September 12th that was attached to this agenda item. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cope.
Hi, I'm Mary Bogers, 1418 Ottawa. The mayor and city commissioners ran election campaigns promoting parks and green space, tree preservation and protection, and environmental stewardship. We even asked for and received the Sierra Club's endorsement. Your city manager's April 13th, 2017 tree ordinance report, quote, reported, quote, in the last 3 years, and it was written in 2017, in the last 3 years, nearly 900 public trees have been removed by the city. In this same time, the city has purchased 250 trees to plant on public land, less than 1/3 of the trees removed. And as a whole, the city has a declining urban forest. This differs from the claim during the August 13th, 2018 commission meeting that the city has planted 400 to 500 trees annually. The report says 250 in a 3-year period. Your actions speak louder than your empty words. You voted to destroy Mark Twain Woods and all its wildlife. You forced residents to pay for sidewalks on beautiful tree-lined streets like Sunnybrook, ordering the largest mature trees that grew in our residential neighborhoods to be cut down. Prior city commissions exempted these neighborhoods from the sidewalk replacement program and preserved these same trees that were cut down. Again, from your city manager's report, property values may be increased by as much as 6% in areas lined with trees as opposed to those without trees, as well as increasing their likelihood to be sold. There's many other values of trees in the report. Planting new trees here and there will never replace the large mature trees in the forest ecosystem you voted to destroy. It will take years for trees to grow to that size. The wildlife are gone too. Just keep saying they have somewhere else to go when there's nowhere else they can go as you overbuild so much that the wildlife have no place. How is all this making Royal Oak your model green sustainable city? The bad decisions you're making are the furthest thing from environmental stewardship and tree preservation. Your actions are hypocritical, illogical, and lack common sense. Now you're asking residents who've been here longer than your lifetime to trust you with millage funds. Why should we trust anything you say? I certainly don't. Residents shouldn't have to pay for commissioners' poor choices. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next? Mr. Wolf.
Ron Wolf, 333 North Troy. I'm going to try to have some room for something positive tonight. I was in Ferndale, the fair yesterday, and I was amazed that they had more business than our Speech and East had over their 2 days, and I didn't have to pay admission. I had free parking. Parking was free on Sunday. All their retail businesses, the Boston Tea Room I was in was jam-packed. They had benches all along up and down 9 Mile Road. All their street lighting was beautiful, and the flowers were even nicer than ours. They were hung so you don't bang your heads against them, and most of all important, they worked. So anyway, now I also want to mention that I'm still very upset at Mr. Johnson's lack of compassion for Royal Oak Manor. I don't understand why they can't free up 18 meters just so the process of attrition can open up some parking for these poor seniors that have been suddenly hurt by not having their cars. This reminds me of Switzerland. You know, Switzerland was neutral, and they said, not our problem, when the Germans carted Jews on their way to the death camps through Switzerland. Not our problem. Well, this is what I hear from Mr. Johnson. The fact that those meters are bad, you know, the fact that those meters are there and that seniors lost parking is not our problem. Okay, now to something more positive. Why our Central Park needs to be the best and how that cannot be established with grants, private donations, and corporate name recognition. A downtown Central Park has an entirely different function than a neighborhood park. It has the job of representing you, your values, your city, and the values of your neighbors. It also has the job of being both the welcome mat and the front door to your hometown, and this is why it needs more in the way of attractions than a neighborhood green space or street with flowers and playgrounds. What better way to accomplish this than with a cooling downtown fountain, augmenting our iconic Whole Dream Star Fountain with scenic walkability, which is, by the way, one of our mayor's goals. Consider that our city hasn't one water attraction to compete with Birmingham or Campus Martius. I suggest taking advantage of the less expensive LED technology now, and also with our Star Dream, to create a spectacular light show with larger centrally located fountain as the center. This will provide a gathering area for families, children's, teens, musicians, yoga classes, artists, and can offer, with the Star Dream, a perfect site for weddings. European-style streetlights with light flowered paths to double-wide sidewalks on both Troy and 3rd, framing a special event area for art tents, food trucks, and additional portable stages as needed. By the way, that's all in the crapper because of the Ford Clinic now. They're going to put their entrance on 3rd. I am told that there is be no objection to moving the Veterans Memorial because people don't want people, I'm sure they don't want people climbing all over it from what I heard. Now, who's going to pay for this? Simply look at how Stardream Plaza was paid for. If we could find a corporate sponsor to help, such as Ford Motor, in turn, we
Wolf,
would...
I do need you to finish your last thought, sir.
We could have this park. I want to thank Ms. Larson, and by the way, I have printed this on residents of Royal Oak. I'm sorry I don't have more than 3 minutes, but it's a pitiful shame that this reflects the respect you have for residents, all
Thank you,
residents.
Mr. Wolf. Who's next? Yes, sir, in the back.
Hello. Hello, Royal Oak City Commission City. My name's Aaron Ladd Deluski. I'm from Troy, right up the road. I live on Main Street. I come here dressed as Captain Woodward. I captain a tandem bike for a blind fellow here in the region. We ride around, we have fun. Yesterday a group of us, we rode 60 miles up and down Woodward, the Woodward Loop. It was fun, you know. We got together, we had a good time. Went to Belle Isle, did a loop. A week ago, I buried my friend. He was hit on Belle Isle, on the Belle Isle Bridge, the MacArthur Belle Isle Bridge. Okay. It's lawlessness out there. That the fact that I have to dress up like this, the fact that you have to paint your roads. Oh, we shouldn't be riding on the roads. Okay? There needs to be some sort of separation for folks. I mean, I don't come here dressed. There's folks here that are dressed, okay, in nice outfits. The back of my jersey says youth. It's for the youth. For the youth. All right. I don't have much more to say. I mean, Troy developed a nice trailway up the road here. It's beautiful. That's the first step. We're proud of it. Mr. Johnson, it was nice seeing you at the park meeting in developing that giant-sized park on Normandy. I'm looking forward to walking amongst the trees there. Yes, trees are important. It keeps us cool. I walked with the Sierra Club on their nice parade through Huntington Woods. I had a good time. A lot of nice people. It's cool there. A lot of trees, you know. I don't have much more to say. I think riding on the road is dangerous. It's not for everybody. Do you think regular people should dress like this? I don't. All right. Can I exit that door?
You can exit that door if you wish.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, who's next? Mr. Harrison.
Bill Harrison, 2729 Trafford, and I'm here to compliment Don Johnson. Don't all pass out. I see the heads swinging here, but I had the opportunity to attend the Downtown Development Authority meeting on Wednesday, and there were two requests for TIF reimbursement for major improvements. In one case to an existing building, another one a new building. The first request was for 90% of the TIF value, and Mr. Johnson recounted the fact that the policy has been to limit it to 80% to the pellet and 20% would go to the DDA. The second person that was asking for TIF reimbursement was only asking for 75% TIF reimbursement. And there's an old saying in the banking industry that an honest man never asks for enough money. And Don Johnson stepped up and said, you know, we've been talking about the policy of 80%. He said he recommended that that they approve 80% for the second pellet. But he didn't stop there. One of the members of the DDA announced that he was voting no on the second proposal, and it was definitely for the wrong reasons. And Don stepped up and advised him that it was inappropriate for him to vote no for the reasons given, and that's why I compliment Don Johnson. Got a minute. As long as we're speaking about the DDA, I notice item 10 is the Appointments Committee recommendations, and I understand that you still have not appointed somebody to the DDA vacancy. The one area that is not represented is a property owner. We have, obviously the resident, the retailers. We have 2 retailers, but we don't have a downtown property owner. And both Don Nahat and myself have served in the past, and I know that you'll melt a snowball in hell before either one of us get on the DDA again. But there are other people out there like Rich Slater, and I'm asking that it be a property owner, somebody that has skin in the game, not a real estate agent. And so that's my song on that one. I got 16 seconds. As long as bicycles have come up, I'd like to have some kind of police enforcement on people that are riding bikes. It's not just kids. It's what I call the professional bikers out there, the guys with spandex and, the routine. They need to have lights on their bicycles.
Mr. Harrison, I do need you to finish your last thought,
Okay,
sir.
all right, lights on their bicycles, and they need to get tickets for impeding traffic. If I were to go as slow as they do in holding up traffic, I would get a ticket. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. Who's next? See a hand in the aisle here? Yes, ma'am?
Law from 1506 Ottawa, and have with us tonight many members of WROK and other neighborhood associations that have made signs, so give them an opportunity to hold the signs up right now. You would recognize me, I'm sure, as being here when we talked about the Mark Twain Woods. And I've since joined WROK and heard about their concerns, many of which were mine already. But they asked me to talk about what I was most concerned about. And I'd have to say, it is something that Mr. Wolf mentioned, and that is the lack of compassion that I witness here on the faces of your commission. Compassion's defined as sorrow for the suffering or trouble of others, accompanied by an urge to help. I love the introduction. I love the prayer where you talked about you're wanting to make a better city. We lived here when it looked more like Mayberry, RFD, instead of New York City. And we really prefer the Mayberry, RFD. The concern that I have with the lack of compassion, I think would relate to every other concern that I have. One is about the ROGO bus system. It looks good on paper till you start thinking about it, and if I have the facts correctly, it would cost students to ride the bus $360 a year per student. They would be on the buses with the general public. That's really frightening to me, to think of middle school kids on buses with the public. We know already that there are people who abuse children, who target places where they know children are. I would not like them to be on a bus with the public. Also, those buses won't have that little sign that swings out and says, stop, because there's kids coming off the bus. They're less safe. You don't go around the bus when that sign is out because you might hit a student. This is so important. I just can't imagine how the school buses ever stopped. I'm a parent of children that have long been out of public education, and they took the buses. And I don't yet have grandkids who are old enough to go to school. So it was a surprise to me that we had no school buses. So I would urge that you forget that no ROGO, forget the ROGO thing, and give us back our school buses and keep our students safe. Also, when I was here the last time, we had two people at least speak about their
Ms. Wall, I do
ridiculously.
need you to finish your last thought, ma'am.
Okay, high water bills. And they were very sad stories. They were already suffering other losses, and this added another loss to them.
Thank you, Ms. Wall.
Thank you.
Who's next? Is that Mr. Colo?
Hello, Mr. Mayor, members of the commission. Brandon Colo, 600 Hudson Avenue. I'm here tonight as a library board member. Really excited to announce a couple of things. First off, we have our Friends Annual Sale coming up. That is October 13th and 14th. It's a Saturday and Sunday. The Friends provide almost all the funding for our programming every year. The children's programming, the summer reading, adult series. We just had a really good series about rainwater and infrastructure yesterday with Jim Nash. That wouldn't be possible without the Friends helping to fund that. So really ask the public come out, come get some really good cheap books and look around. Second thing I'm really excited to announce is that tomorrow night we will be approving new policy that will see home delivery for people who are homebound. People who lack mobility can't get out of their house without regard to age. You could be my age, you could be my grandfather's age. Might not be able to get out of the house. We will send you books and give you a prepaid envelope to send them right back to us. We've been really focused on access at the library the last couple of years. This is the next step to make sure that we're connected to all. Information about that program is going to be available shortly. Please call the library. Any librarian will help you curate a book, get them out to you. But you can find information on ropl.org or go ahead and give us a call. So with that, unless there's any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Colo? Mr. Colo, just a comment. Thank you to you and the library board for your progressive vision and the work that you do and the volunteer hours that you put in to make our library and our community a little better each time you meet. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, who's next? I see a hand in the back corner.
Tim Luke, 305 Mount Vernon. I'd like to invite those residents that have had enough of the mismanagement of our city to join us tomorrow at Elks Club on 4th and Stevenson at 5 p.m. to join others with the same concerns. I'd like to take this opportunity to ask the Royal Oak residents to wake up. The city leadership has gone well beyond selling us the new and shiny future. Let's take a look behind the curtain as to what's really going on. Currently, there is a $14 million surplus. With all the revenue the current city management is anticipating, why is there a need for additional millages? When is enough enough? We currently have a $9.5 million public safety millage in place that has resulted in the hiring of 17 policemen and 0 firemen, but has paid for 42 non-emergency City Hall employees. They are asking for $750,000, $2 million for sidewalks that have just been replaced at homeowners' expense. Does the cement deteriorate that fast? We all paid once, now you're asking us to continue to pay. Is this another city slush fund? These millages are nothing more than taxes. The proposed city bus system is being sold as a solution to the elderly and school children. Parents, be aware. The proposed peak out school hours at start of day and end of day, these are not the large smart buses. Moving 30 children at a time is not a solution. A pass will cost you $360, plus what you will pay in additional taxes through the millage. There is no supervision on the bus and at the stops. There is currently a system that is available for the elderly that is underfunded and mismanaged. that would provide door-to-door assistance for the elderly, a real solution. To improve this system, the cost would be minimal compared to the proposed $6 million millage. As a resident, I protest the use of the $10,000 of our taxes to send out a promotional piece on the proposed bus system under the guise as an informational piece. With no opposing view provided, this reeks of the way the city management drives its agenda over the residents of Royal Oak. The destruction of Mark Train Woods falls on the mayor and those of you commissioners that sold yourselves to the Sierra Club for endorsement. You have shown your true colors to the residents of Royal Oak. Cement over dollars. Above what Royal Oak truly is, a family community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Luke. All right, who's next? Yes, sir. Let's keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, it's typical that we don't allow clapping after public comment. Where it's good to support your cause and support those who are speaking and representing you, we also have folks that may have a dissenting opinion, and we don't want to not encourage our fellow community members not to come up and speak their mind. So I just ask that, you keep the applause, out of public comment. Thank you. Yes, sir.
My name is Mark Lightman. I'm a resident of Texas. I'm up here, and for the last few weeks, I've been busy renovating some homes for some single mothers that are dependent upon Section 8 to have a safe place to live. I decided to take some time off for Arts, Beats, and Eats, and came up Washington and turned left on one of the streets, and saw all the barricades saying permit parking. I went over to Lafayette and passed another barricade as I exited one of the east-west streets and found a place that, according to the signage, was legal to park. I ended up getting a ticket, and I wanted to share with you some concerns I had. I called the court and told them I use a P.O. box because of my traveling. They wouldn't send a court notice to a P.O. box. I said, how about my email? Well, we'll send you a notice before your court date, but we can't send the court date hearing to your P.O. box. I said, well, it's not going to make it to a street address, and frankly, the ticket was for a vehicle that is not registered to me, and you will not find the person who it is registered to be able to get them to pay the ticket, but I'm trying to do the right thing. So I had no luck with the court, so I called the police station. The police station said, call Department of Public Works. So you can't fight City Hall, so here I am begging some sympathy from you all, particularly Mr. Gillum as the city attorney. What I wanted to address was this. I was at DIY this past weekend, had a great time, left. When I went to Arts, Beats, and Eats, it left a really bad taste in my mouth. I spent about $80 at 2 bars and a restaurant. My guest and I, we spent money in the festival itself, on amusement rides and art, probably over $200. I probably won't be back next year to do it, and it's because of this ticket. So what I wanted to do, instead of bitching, was to give some constructive suggestions. First of all, this ticket only allows you 72 hours to pay it, and then the fine goes from $50 to $100. Now, fortunately, after a 40-year career, I'm retired, and I can afford to pay this if I chose to do so. A lot of people live paycheck to paycheck, and if they paid their rent on Friday and got this ticket on Saturday, they're not going to have the money to pay it 72 hours later, and I don't think 72 hours is a reasonable period of time to give someone enough opportunity to try to do the right thing. Number 2, all of the barricades were on the east-west streets, or so I thought, when I exited on 10 Mile and headed north on Washington, made a left, and then turned right onto Lafayette and parked. When I came back and found I had a ticket, so did the vehicle behind me, and they actually had a permit, but got ticketed anyway. When I looked, I found there was a sign a half a mile behind me, on the south end of Lafayette, but I couldn't see it from the way I entered. I went past a sign, exited, went past another one. I thought I was legal. I would suggest they take the little orange pylons and put a stick in there or tape something over the signs or meters, permit parking on this block, because I don't think I should have gotten the ticket because I couldn't see the sign. Lastly, I'd like to know, who can I talk to? Maybe the city clerk or the attorney, and see if I can get this dismissed?
Thank you, Mr. Lightman.
Who can I talk to? Because I'm not going to court, and you guys won't find me. I'd like to do the right thing and try to make it better
This
for other
body
people.
doesn't have jurisdiction over those fines. You have to go through the courts, unfortunately for you.
They are a brick wall. As I told you, they would not notify me to a P.O. box
I
or
can't
to
change
an
the
email.
Constitution.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, I will just take 3 seconds to share this. I hope some of you have the ability to change the 72 hours and to make sure that next time they have a public event, that they put the little orange traffic cones or something over the signs on the side streets,
Yep.
because I thought I was in a legal area.
Thank you, Mr. Lightman. Who's next? See a hand in the back corner? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. Kathy Arnold, 4509 Hampton. I'm here tonight to speak on the agenda topic, the informational letter that's planned to be sent out to the voters. While I'm very happy to see this is actually a discussion topic, because I don't recall it in recent years, it was just something sent out. So I'm happy to hear you guys will be discussing this later. I'm hoping to see a result that is actually clear, concise, and factual. Two specific points, since we're limited to time. There's some wording that, as written, is somewhat problematic. The line, the city's plan, if this is approved, is to contract with SMART or a private transportation company to operate the service. That wording, private transportation company, is very misleading, and there's actually no excuse me, factual basis that exists to support it. In this very room on June 20th, this commission voted and approved this statement. Be it resolved, the city commission hereby accepts and adopts the WROK plan as presented. If you read the WROK plan, there is nothing in that task force report that references any company but SMART managing the proposed transit system. Second, the wording extensive effort by our task force, to me, is not just questionable, but debatable. Many could argue that extensive efforts should have included discussions with other services, like Chariot, who our forward-thinking neighbors in Ferndale are testing currently. Many options exist that are being used elsewhere with success. None of them outside a SMART partnership were researched. Royal Oak residents deserve better. We deserve better choices that you have chosen to put in front of us this November. We deserve due diligence from the task force, and we were let down. Instead, we have before us a choice for or against an inefficient and costly plan that is currently shown will leave too many residents with a half-mile or longer walk to a bus stop. Many other residents will only have a reasonable choice of the enhanced 430 route, which, according to task force reports, are 30 to 60-minute intervals. That's really not reasonable transportation. So 3 minutes doesn't allow for pointing out many more problems that I see. I trust that you will give it extensive discussion later in the agenda and come up with something that's fair and factual for the voters to consider.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Arnold.
you.
Who's next? Yes, sir, in the front.
Good evening. Alex Schneider, 1011 Knoll Street. The taxpayers are going to be asked to vote for 1.25 mil for the public transit system and 0.75 mil to approve sidewalk millage. I would oppose this, and I'm going to tell you why. A few years ago, the residents were asked to vote for the public safety millage, and they supported that. Unfortunately, the funds were misappropriated and went to different departments, and many administrators were hired as a result of that millage, many new administrators. The taxpayers should know this, that you majority on this commission should not be trusted with their money. And here's why. You approved no bid contracts, namely Boji. How fair is that? How fair is it that some of you took the money from Rizzo and approved a truck route on my street, which created nothing but problems? How fair is it that you're misappropriating the public safety millage? So if you cannot trust what you've done, the taxpayers should have a very long look at what you're proposing to do with the monies for those millages. To me, the sidewalk millage, after people just paid for the sidewalks, is nothing but sidewalk to nowhere. And this transit millage is nothing but bus to nowhere. And that's what it comes down to, whether you like it or not. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schneider. Who's next? I saw a fast hand in the back. Yes, that's Ms. Wagman. Oh, sorry.
Good evening. Janice Wagman, 600 Wellesley. First of all, I want to thank Commissioner LeVasseur and the rest of the commission for not rubber stamping the request to send out a letter to the residents about the ballot proposals. After seeing the draft, I believe this letter will, in fact, endorse voting for the transit millage, as it gives false information, leading information, and more merit to the proposal than it should. Specifically, quote, to contract with SMART or a private transportation company to operate the service. The commission approved a partnership with SMART. No private transportation company was ever mentioned. The city does not intend to operate a local bus system itself. It may not, but it's hired in the budget is a manager who's going to be paid by the city, a new employee, $115,000 plus. Another quote, the public transit system millage proposal is the result of an extensive effort by a citizen task force that studied local transportation needs. This gives more merit than it should. It was a small, hand-picked task force with a survey representing less than 2% of the population and very limited public comment during meetings. Further, they were given a directive to use public transportation to the exclusion of any other means of transportation, such as Uber, Lyft, Chariot, or even Via, now in pilot testing in Arlington, Texas. Arlington gave up fixed route buses, chose to determine the demand for a ride-sharing system instead of burdening the taxpayers with a $15 million five-year program. Even SMART can't predict the ridership for our proposal. It would cost the average taxpayer with a taxable value of $85,000, is also in this proposed letter. If we truly want to educate the residents, and as Commissioner Douglas stated, ensure effective decision-making, give a URL so they can look up taxable value of their homes, our residents' homes, not an average. And add a statement, you will pay $1.25 for every $1,000 of the taxable value of your home. That is factual. I have faith that the residents are capable of doing this. Quoting Commissioner DeBuck, it should contain very neutral, non-advocacy language. This letter should be rewritten. Also, I'm looking forward to the ROAR fundraiser tomorrow evening. As Erica said, it's an opportunity for residents to learn more about the November ballot proposals. And Mayor Fournier and Commissioners, just so you know, we are not a handful of people. We are a grassroots movement. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wegman. All right, let's go with the second fastest hand in the back. All right.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Janine Krolikowski, 618 Mount Vernon Boulevard. First, I am here to go over the recommendations for non-paving alternatives for Mount Vernon Boulevard. Let me just say my personal feeling is to when we get to that point that there will be no recommendations, because in dealing with the city staff, it's always been pave, pave, pave. we would like to look towards other alternatives. First, let me ask that we revisit this in October like the other homeowner had stated. Some of us, myself, that have been gone out of town for almost 3 months and playing catch-up, and I mean catch-up with what's going on. So I'm have to re-educate myself about a lot of things. I have a very deep concern because one of our residents had talked to Oakland County. And one of our main problems on Mount Vernon Boulevard is drainage. We have no crest to our road anymore since the chip seal debacle. We have insufficient drainage. One individual presented to our homeowner, Wally, that we could possibly add limestone to the top of the road and recrest it, so we would have a runoff. We do this up north in the West Branch area for all of our private roads. We do it almost yearly, sometimes every other year. This does facilitate some drainage. That's one possibility. My concern at this point is this, and this was said to me personally from a Royal Oak staff member. Our residents know very little, so the staff has to do what they need to do. Well, listening to everything that's going on here, I beg to differ. The residents of Royal Oak are intelligent. They're engaged. I would love to see for our road a possibility of a stakeholders board that would work with and be proactive with the city versus always reactive on our street. We are the last large boulevard, dirt boulevard, in the city of Royal Oak. For Pete's sakes, it's historical. We have trees that will be taken down. We have a road that's gorgeous. People run down it, walk down it, bike down it. Let's not let it go to pavement. Let's embrace each other, the residents, with the staff, and not be doing this, because this is all too often. I am on 3 boards, one in Lansing with American Heart Association, one up north in West Branch. And it behooves all of us to work together, not against each other. Thank you.
Hey, Ms. Filkowski.
Thank you.
All right. Who's next? See a hand in the back, yellow shirt. Maybe peach, maybe orange.
Good evening. My name is Adam Bernard, 2814 Glenwood. You've already heard from several passionate individuals concerned about the upcoming millages, or to use real guy terms, tax increases. Unlike some of the myths perpetuated by leadership, I'm not someone who's been complaining for decades about change in this city. I've been here and happy for mostly of the 23 years I've been here, and it's only since the poorly communicated and mismanaged sidewalk repair fiasco several years ago that I became concerned about where this city was going. I've seen social media posts from Royal Oak Connect, since removed, inaccurately stating that Ann Arbor puts students in public buses using photos from California. I've seen Rogo compared to Grand Rapids Transit, who not only managed to generate ridership targets, unlike Rogo, but unfortunately fell short of those targets by 50%. This plan, frankly, has flaws that you could drive a bus through. In regards to the letter just mentioned, I remember being told several months ago that you all couldn't clarify the ballot language in last August's election in order not to appear preferential. I'm not sure how to reconcile that comment with this letter, which is noted appears biased. About 30% of the votes in last November's election were cast for candidates equally concerned about this city's future. That's not a small handful of complainers, and we ask to be taken seriously. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bernard. All right, who's next? Mr. Gittinger.
Hi, I'm Jason Gittinger. I live at 2705 Clausen Avenue. I'm just here to tell you guys tonight about an effort that's been happening for about 6 months now. We've been meeting with a number of civic leaders to start a new initiative, which we are calling Roam Home, which will happen in its inception next year, next October. The whole point is to encourage everybody working together in this community. We turn 100 in a couple years, maybe 3 years, 2021, I think it is. So our hope is that in the ramp up to 2021, we start this annual effort to, for a week of the year, align every faction in town under the same homecoming umbrella. So this Roam Home umbrella. beginning of the week would be a Royal Oak open house at the farmer's market, where every group in town has a table to tell the people that come to the fun night about their organization. I would hope that Stagecrafters comes and has a table and talks about Stagecrafters, or that people that are concerned about trees have a table about how people can engage with trees. Groups that support the police might have a table at this event. A chess club from the high school, a bunch of kids that love to sing and dance have their own table. Insert any number of things I can't possibly think of, all coming to the farmer's market for that week kickoff to talk about what they do throughout the year, how the people in the community can get involved and engaged with each of those things. We've noted over the years that a lot of organizations go through cycles of people aging out of their organizations, and it's challenging in our current social media world to engage young people to be a part of those organizations. So hopefully it bolsters some of those, and it gives some of the new ones that are cropping up in our world a platform to connect with our community deeper. So this Roam Home initiative will hopefully be a great uniter. The end of it is hopefully the DDA Spooktacular. So we'll bookend the week, and then our goal is not to throw a festival for anybody, but for all of us to have our own activities happening that week. Maybe somebody throws a reunion in a park, maybe somebody throws an 80s night at a restaurant, and maybe somebody plans a concert at the middle school auditorium, all kinds of activities under the same umbrella to celebrate ourselves, to invite people who are from here to come back and see our wonderful city again, and to encourage all to engage with each other in town in a positive manner. So I just wanted to give you guys a heads up that has been an initiative we've been working on, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So really appreciate you guys' time. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Nice work. When we first heard of this, when you and some others started to put it together, I thought it was an amazing idea, and really highlighting the positive things we have going on in the community. So kudos to you and the team.
Could we get some contact information for Mr. Gettinger?
Yes, I live at 2705 Clausen Avenue. My email address.
Not for public information, but.
You're welcome.
Your phone number or something?
Sure, yeah.
You have it? Okay, never mind.
No
You
worries.
got it.
But it's my name, my email's my name, jason@gettinger.name. Pretty simple, so thank you.
Jason, is the website?
There is a website, roamhomeroyaloak.com, that has the information that's on that sheet of paper, as well as the ability to submit ideas for activities and stuff. We have a meeting tomorrow to hopefully get more things to go on that. So
Perfect.
appreciate you guys' time. Thank you.
Great work. All right. Who's next? Oh, is that Miss? Well, I see a hand. I can't see. Dr. Anderson, maybe? I don't know. You're sitting under a dark void between two spotlights.
Okay, Dr. Wallace Anderson, 404 Mount Vernon Boulevard. And I'm here to voice my opposition to the two local millage proposals on the general election ballot, and details as covered in item 12 tonight's agenda. First, the sidewalk millage. Having just been dinged for likely close to 10 grand for new sidewalks plus replacement slabs, I've paid a lot of attention recently to sidewalks and matters concerning them. And I oppose this millage because, first, the 2012-2017 sidewalk improvement program is over. Now, there may be a new one coming up. I'm not aware of it, but it's done. So they're asking for money for something that I don't see a plan in place. Second, if the full millage amount is assessed, starting in our winter taxes, we would be paying roughly twice as much in taxes as was needed per year for the now concluded program for replacements. I also oppose the public transit system millage. Now, I am a huge advocate of public transportation. I voted for RTA, and my support continues for that. I've used public transportation a lot in Chicago, as well as in DC, New York, San Francisco, the UK, and France. Importantly, these systems are regional, not local. I oppose the WROK tax because, first, it's local, not regional. There are a couple stops near Smart and Amtrak, but that's not making it regional. Second, mass transit requires densely populated areas to generate sufficient ridership. To offer a reasonable amount of the cost to offset the cost. Taxpayers still have to cover some of the cost, of course, but Royal Oaks housing is predominantly single-family dwellings, not high density. Third, a significant portion of the ridership is seen as middle and high school students. Peak periods would likely only be in morning and afternoon during the school year. It would cost Royal Oak residents much less than ROGO to add a moderate tax to enable the schools to reestablish busing. And finally, the senior center already operates a bus system for seniors, which needs improvement, of course, but it serves them much more effectively than the proposed ROGO routes and stops. So, as with many of my other neighbors and friends, I invite anyone listening to join me tomorrow night at the Elks Club, 5 to 7:30, for a Defeat the Millages fundraiser. Minimum contribution, only $20, hosted by ROAR, Royal Oakers for Accountability and Responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, who's next? I see a hand in the back corner.
My name is Brent Plaxton. I live at 500 Helene. Lived here for about 15 years. Two concerns. One, your bike lanes. I have a brother who's an avid bicyclist. We grew up out in West Bloomfield, and he lived on the side of the roads. And he also had a lot of friends get seriously screwed up biking on the side of a road. He lived in downtown Cleveland and biked through the streets with other bike messengers, and inevitably, they all screwed themselves up because they were in traffic. We have put bike lanes and sharrows out and now encouraged the riders to join us on the road. I would hope that we are prepared when an accident does happen and somebody decides it's the city's fault for encouraging these people onto the sides of the road. I can't stress it enough. It's just not safe. It might sound cool if it's a 25-mile-an-hour road, but even then, people don't know when you're going to turn, cut in front of you. People will get hurt. My next concern is on the busing option. I don't think you're going to get the ridership you envision. The elderly are not going to truck themselves down to a bus stop for it, and I am all for public transit. I voted on every single one, plus. I would suggest looking into a ride-sharing service or something the city can provide to give the elderly and the disabled a ride to and from their door where they need to be safely, and not trusting this into a busing option. I know there are issues with getting funding back into the schools to start busing, because it's a separate entity, so you can't just start busing and it's state-controlled. But that's what lawyers are for and a good legal team is for, trying to figure out a way around it and make it happen again. We are not an environmental city when we have hundreds of cars parked around our schools every day waiting for kids to pour out instead of 12 buses. That doesn't make sense. And we do it twice a day, and we have mass pandemonium around these schools with traffic and kids cutting in and out. It's not safe. That's it. You can have your other 55 seconds back. Thanks.
All right, who's next? I see a hand in the corner here.
Debbie Campbell, East University. I'm here to speak about Agenda Item 12, approval of the ballot proposal informational letter. I disagree with the city manager's assessment in his cover letter to you that this citizen's letter is purely informational and does not advocate a position. This letter is costing taxpayer money $10,000 for printing and postage. Statements like an extensive effort by a citizen task force and this being a service are biased and promotional. The public transit millage proposal is for a system. It remains to be seen whether or not it would be of service to anyone. I submit the following changes to the public transit system letter. First paragraph, second sentence refers to a transportation service. In this case, it's a matter of opinion if it's a service. The word should be system to be consistent with the ballot language. Second paragraph, second sentence should end with, in addition to existing bus systems and costs we currently have. It needs to be clear to voters that the existing systems and costs are not going away, that this is an additional tax. Second paragraph, third sentence should end with Amtrak. The rest of the sentence is promotional. Fourth paragraph, remove entirely. Promotional language about the task force does nothing to explain the millage proposal. That there was a citizens task force at all may cause voters to erroneously believe that there was a citizen outcry for a citywide bus system. You and I know this was not the case. The city commission wanted a transportation plan, so you created the task force and handpicked the task force members. Furthermore, the extensive effort statement may bias voters to feel that the citizen task force deserves to be rewarded for their extensive effort with the passage of a millage. If you feel you must direct the citizens to online information, it should be clearly stated that the romy.gov/transit link is a task force's interpretation of information, and this is a sales pitch. The fifth paragraph, remove second sentence. Your example that the average taxpayer has a home with a taxable value of $85,577 is misleading. Show me the homes, I'll buy them all as an investment. I recommend informing taxpayers that if approved, this transit millage will cost taxpayers $3 million plus per year for 5 years, and that they will be charged an additional to-be-determined fare on top of that to ride the bus. And truly informational, please tell taxpayers how to calculate what their share of this tax increase will be. In closing, I believe the ballot language is clear and concise and does not need any further explanation in a letter. In fact, please let's save the taxpayers 10 grand and not send the letter at all.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell. Who's next? I guess that thought about clapping during public comment was not well received. Who's next? All right, going once, going twice. Okay.
Kathleen Klein, 412 Park Ave, Royal Oak. I didn't get up because I thought some other people would be here to speak on these topics, but short of that, I want to mention I'm here tonight to make sure, as a matter of fact, I'd like to see if item P could be removed from the consent agenda so that there can be a conversation with this audience tonight, who you can see are deeply committed to understanding what this master planning process update is going to be like. When it's in a consent agenda, there's no information being shared with us. And directing people to a website isn't effective communication anymore. We have an aging population, a good portion of them in this community that are not computer savvy. So we're disenfranchising a large segment of our population, number one. Number two, I'd like to see if it's possible or how to go about FOIAing any email transmissions, letter conversations between the City of Royal Oak and CN Rail. We have an overpass at 11 Mile that is in a horrible state of deterioration, and everybody just seems to keep passing the buck. Nobody's willing to take this on, and it's really horrible that something bad should have to happen before someone's willing to force this issue. We have pictures, they're online. My God, this community is so active on Facebook, it's unbelievable. That needs to be addressed, and I can't come to these meetings all the time, but I'm gonna hope people behind me are willing to come and demand some answer to that issue with that bridge that's deteriorating. I also wanna second everything that Debbie Campbell just said, because she couldn't have done it better, and I'd like to know how we get you guys to incorporate her suggestions into that letter. They're good suggestions. There's nothing inappropriate about what's being asked for in that document. And the last thing, if it's at all possible, to explore getting some waste receptacles at Meininger Park, at the four corners of that park, because we have a horribly lazy resident in that area that picks up their dog poop and then doesn't take it home. They drop it all around that neighborhood, and part of that may be that there's a lack of appropriately or conveniently placed receptacles. I know it's difficult in the winter because trash freezes and they're hard to empty, but we should try to come up with something there because it's been a chronic problem for many years, and we, short of putting a night cam up there, we can't seem to find out who this person is. But thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Klein. Anybody else here to speak tonight at public comment?
I'd like to finish my address.
Going once, going twice.
I'd like to
All right, we're going to bring the meeting back up here. This brings us to item number 5, which is the approval of the agenda. If there are any commissioners so inclined to approve the agenda, make adjustments, Commissioner Dubuck.
The agenda is proposed.
Motion by Commissioner Dubuck. Is there support? Support by Commissioner Douglas. Discussion? All right, with none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? The motion passes. We have an agenda. This brings us to item number 6, the consent agenda. Commissioner LeVasseur.
I would like the following matters to be removed from the consent agenda. Items I, J, K, L, M, and P.
Commissioner Macy.
Items E and N.
Anybody else? I'd like to pull off item O for a quick discussion.
Gotta be
Leaves essentially nothing. Things on the consent agenda. A few reports to receive and file. All right, so we now have a consent agenda which consists of City Commission meeting minutes, August 27th and September 10th, 2018, appointments committee rotation, request for election week or election work pay increase, approval of banner request, Royal Star Arts Institute, claims September 14th, September 25th, 2018, approval of purchase orders, adoption of the City of Royal Oak All Hazard Material Mitigation Plan, the approval of amended license agreement on 1025 North Campbell, securing residential construction and demolition sites ordinance amendment, second reading, receive and file non-action items, which consist of follow-up to higher water bill report, goals and objectives, progress report, and August 2018 Franco project activity report. Is there a motion? Commissioner Dubuck? Moved. Moved by Commissioner Dubuck, supported by Commissioner Macy. Discussion on the revised consent agenda? All right, with none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion passes. So this brings us to item number E, or letter E, formerly on the consent agenda.
That's me.
Ms. Macy?
So I was a little confused about this one because it looks like our city staff is recommending against putting this banner up. And then the resolution says if we wish to approve it, this would be appropriate. I wasn't even sure what including it on the consent agenda meant, if we were approving it or not approving it, but in any case, I sort of feel, I agree with staff that putting up a banner for a private, for-profit entity seems like a strange thing for us to be doing as a city without a reason, and it seems like it's going to open the floodgates to be doing this quite a bit, even though I'm sure it's a great event and a great cause. So I would be voting against this resolution if that's what we're doing today.
Anyone have an answer to that question?
Let me try to answer the question, or at least speak to the issue. The request is a request being made by a private for-profit corporation, but it's a request to promote an activity that's open to the public. What they're calling their trunk or treat program in their parking lot. There was at one time, the city clerk found for me near the end of the day on Friday that a previous version of the sign ordinance absolutely required all such requests for banners to come from a nonprofit. But that's no longer in the sign ordinance, and we're not quite sure why. It seems to have gotten removed somewhere, and we're not sure that it was actually done deliberately. I think you're all aware that staff, particularly the DPS director who's responsible for these banners, is opposed to all of them.
Aware. Commissioner Dubuck?
So, Mr. Johnson, you're saying we don't currently have a policy on record?
Not that we could find.
What is the legality of us dictating that this service is only available to a certain sector of business?
The city has the authority to manage the public right-of-way, and that's what we're talking about, is what classes of banners are you going to be allowed to be hung within the right-of-way. You're not regulating the content. what you're doing is you're potentially setting a policy, or at least, in theory, carrying out a policy based upon who the applicant is. So I don't see a problem with it.
So we can't have a policy saying only nonprofits or civic clubs are eligible to post banners?
Absolutely.
City-sponsored events.
Or city-sponsored events?
Because you could have a nonprofit-like committee to elect Commissioner Dubak, and you just want to make sure that that's not a city-sponsored event, so you'd want to.
So the question before us is whether or not we're approving this one?
Right.
But staff recommends no, but that's because DPS doesn't like doing any of these, not necessarily because of the issue with it being private business.
Staff is drawing it to your attention that this is a for-profit. We have not been doing these for for-profits, but we cannot find anything anymore that prevents us from doing them for a for-profit. And even though this is a for-profit, what they're promoting is an activity that's open to the public. They're not advertising their dental services.
Commissioner Macy?
So just to bring Commissioner Dubak's attention to the fact that there's another banner request on this that city staff did recommend approval for that we just approved in the consent agenda.
And Commissioner Macy's other comment is absolutely correct. This one is, I would say, an oversight that this stayed on consent. This should not have been a consent item.
Commissioner LeVasseur?
How much was the fee that this applicant paid in order to request that they be allowed to put up the banner?
$225.
Is that a refundable fee to them, or is that basically gone if this commission does not approve it?
It is non-refundable, and I did speak to the person that applied for it and explained that I had to go before the commission, and it is non-refundable if they still wanted to go forward, and they did.
Commissioner Perush?
My concern is not only with this specific one, because it is a private entity, even though it's a public event, but once word of, if this gets approved, of this gets out, I can see an awful lot of other private businesses staging these kinds of events as a promotion for their business, because clearly they're going to get some advertising bump from this activity. And I can envision a time when there's going to be, we can only have banners on so many different locations. We don't have an unlimited number of places to put them. It's a fairly limited location. I think it's maybe only 4 or 5 locations. I can see where.
Just 2.
Oh, just 2. Well, that makes it even worse. I can see competing, who gets first dibs, first one in the door, gets the banner, with only a $225 fee. That's not a large hurdle to overcome for most businesses, I would think. So I'm uncomfortable with the existing situation. I'm inclined not to approve this until we think more through this and figure out if there's a way to manage this better, because I don't like the direction that this could potentially go into. Unfortunately, it's a non-refundable fee. I don't know whether we can make an exception to that for them tonight. It seems unfortunate that they're the first ones testing this particular situation. I don't know. Dave Gillum's whispering over there.
That is non-refundable, is that right?
Now Mr. Johnson is whispering.
I like to whisper.
Commissioner, I'm sorry, I apologize for
That's okay.
whispering during your, but no, in terms of the refundability, if the commission were to deny the application, but then direct that the application fee be refunded, staff would be able to do that, so.
Okay. I would not, I think, is there a motion on the table?
No.
Not yet. If there is, I will make a motion that we deny this application and that we refund their fee.
Motion by Commissioner Perush, supported by Commissioner Dubak. Discussion? Commissioner Douglas.
Well, not so much, I'll be voting in favor of the motion, but I do think that we need at some point to delve into this more thoroughly.
Oh, yeah.
There was a time earlier in my term on the commission when the staff came to us and asked us to allow them to never hang banners. And I supported that because, there are principles in management where when you ask people to do something new, ask yourself what they're not going to do, and that was a not going to do thing that they had requested. So I would again entertain that possibility, but failing that, I can see a scenario where you let market forces dictate it and set up a pricing scale that's different for for-profits and not-for-profits. Just a thought.
I think my opinion is I'm going to be supporting the motion. I think that while I believe the intentions of this petitioner are noble and they want to do a good thing and all of that, it's hard for us to discern with every application coming in front of us whether, the business or for-profit or whatever may be, doing it for, the best of intentions. I think we do reliably know with civic groups and certain nonprofits that, their intentions are embedded in the work that they do, right? So we know that. And when we're talking about this valuable piece of real estate coming into Main Street and coming in and out of town, I do see it as being a diplomatic nightmare down the road, because everybody would want to put their, signs up there directly or indirectly marketing their business, given its prime location. So I think when the request came in front of us to sort of stop this activity from DPS, as Commissioner Douglas brought up, there was some nostalgia that some of us expressed about having these signs supporting, long-standing civic events and things of that nature that, just sort of became a thing there on Main Street. And I think we want to, at least I want to keep it in that same vein and not make it a temporary billboard across our downtown, but that's my thought, so I'm supporting it for those reasons. Okay. With that, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Okay, that brings us to item letter I, award of construction engineering services for Royal Oak Civic Center connectivity. Is that Commissioner LeVasseur? You pulled that one off?
I did. What I was noting here is that the recommendation from staff was that we accept a bid that was about 3 times higher than the lowest bid among the qualified bidders, which works out to about $250,000. And I don't believe that that's something that should simply be passed on a consent agenda without some discussion as to why we would pass on a low bid like this and accept a much, much higher bid like this.
Callahan?
Questions? Good evening, Commissioners and Mayor. In this particular case, we went through the QBS process as to select a consultant based on a proposal that they prepared and submitted to us. The proposal had 5 different categories that were ranked. A lot of this particular project involves a very detailed level of expertise that we felt came into play here. The consultant that is selected does have a higher price, but they also come with the most experience in designing up and overseeing these types of projects for the city of Royal Oak. They've been doing this for going on 20 years, and we believe that their 7% rate, 7% is what they bid out their fee at based on the overall project, is reasonable. A reasonable cost for engineering oversight is usually between 6 and 9%, so they're just slightly more than 6%. And it's not that we don't believe that the lowest bidder can do this job, but they've never designed a streetscape in Royal Oak and never overseen a streetscape in Royal Oak. So we have some questions about their abilities to take someone else's design and do a good job without continuously interacting with staff to help them out. We are confident that the Noack and Frous team will be able to do this with a limited, minimal interaction with staff, because we've already spent a lot of time with staff to design up this project, and we believe that they're going to do the best job. That's why they were scored the highest.
It seems like there's a lot of subjective grading if I'm understanding correctly, as far as your gut feel as to the qualifications or the abilities. Do you disagree with that statement?
It's our experience overseeing these projects, designing them in-house and overseeing them in-house, and having consultants do the same thing. We've lived through this. We have found that when somebody underbids the project, they typically ask for extras later on, and then we're left with having to figure out ways to pay them more money later on because they didn't put enough money towards a project.
Right, but now wouldn't that be a matter of contract drafting and very clearly setting forth what the terms, what the expectations are, for the price bid?
This is a process that you go through with their RFP. They put together the best RFP, and they are, in our opinion, the best team based on that RFP and based on their experience working for the city.
All right.
I mean, that's how we select them on federal projects. And in this particular case, it's a very large project. We want the company that's going to do the best job for the city, and we want to make sure that it gets done right. We only have one chance to do it right, and I don't want to come back to the commission later on and have to ask for extras or unforeseen things.
I could see perhaps grading someone a little bit higher based upon that gut feel. Let's say there's a 10% difference between a bid, but in this instance, you've got the bid that's being proposed is more than 3 times higher than the low bid, almost twice as high as the second bid, and that's substantial amount of money here. We're talking $250,000 here. I just can't see. I mean, these are companies that you've determined are qualified to do this job, or you would not have accepted bids from them. I just can't see spending that substantially different amount of money above and beyond the other bids with something extremely concrete saying that those other two can't get the job done.
Well, you are actually looking at the low bid of OHM Advisors. If you read their proposal, which it isn't included in here, they said that they would provide assistance to whomever gets awarded the project for that amount of money. That's why there's the double asterisk on there to describe what their proposal included. We were going to dismiss their proposal entirely because they weren't proposing to be the lead inspector on the project. They were only proposing to provide extra assistance.
All right, now what about?
So I'm like comparing Noack and Frous to Fleece and Vandenbrink.
All right, so in this instance, the difference between those two firms is $160,000 with Noack and Frous being, I can't do math real quick in my head, I'm going to say about 40% higher than Fleece and Vandenbrink. That's still
correct.
Substantial.
It is substantial. We don't have the staff to train somebody brand new to do this. And Noack and Frous will need no training at all. And not that Fleece and Vandenbrink can't do this job, but they've never done it before for Royal Oak. And this is a 2.5-year project that's going to take place.
It would just seem to me if Noack and Frous is so ingrained in this project that they ought to be able to do this much cheaper than anyone else that, if would have a learning curve here. And my question is would Noack and Frous be willing to match one of these lower bids here?
I've already talked to Tim Germain of Noack and Frous. He's a principal in the company about the price that they submitted, and he said he sticks by his price and his percent of the overall cost.
Commissioner Macy.
So I share some of Commissioner LeVasseur's concerns about this for a similar but slightly different reason. So it seems like that, we accepted these 3 as potential people to bid on this project. And then even though Noack and Frous came in at the highest bid, we consider them to be the most qualified because they've done this work for us in the past. But it seems like that's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If we keep giving Noack and Frous the bid over and over again because they've done the work in the past, they're going to keep being the one who's done the work in the past. So I guess when I was reading through what the comments were, and it was good to have that feedback, it just seemed. I agree that it seems subjective that we know Noack and Frous is going to do a great job on this. We trust them. We've worked with them so many times. They're already deeply ingrained in this project. Those are all good reasons to accept their bid, but it is so much higher. It's so much higher than the second bid of someone who we've already determined to be a qualified contractor for the city and who maybe hasn't done this work for Royal Oak, but maybe hasn't received the chance because we've been selecting bids in this way in the past. And it stood out to me as well when I was looking through this. And I think the OHM advisors, I saw the note that it was not an equivalent bid, but it does seem to me even these two are so close in their rating and yet so far apart in their price that it seems like maybe worth a second look. But I'd like to say I've been happy with all the Noack and Frauss's work, and I'm nothing negative towards them. It's just when comparing these bids, that's what stood out to me.
I just want to make sure everyone understands that this is for a pretty extensive project in the city, and like Mr. Callahan said, this is a 2.5-year project. You get a singular mistake, a singular delay, it can cost you well above, the differential in the quotes here for the management project. So I think there's some valid points there, but I think for this project, this timeline, where we're at today, we have to really put an extra emphasis on quality and experience in this regard. That's what my gut's telling me. Anybody else?
Mayor?
Commissioner Douglas?
Mr. Callahan, the process, there's a name for it, the RFQ process that we go through to choose engineers that are going to be of record with us. And here we see Noack and Frauss, Flees Van den Brink, and OHM advisors. Do they all have the same strengths in all possible engineering fields? And maybe part of that question is, are there other projects where we've chosen Flees and Van den Brink because they had a sweet spot in one of the services or projects that we were getting prices on?
Well, absolutely. Noack and Frauss has been one of our consultants from the very beginning, since we started doing this and approving a consultant, and so has OHM. OHM does a lot of fantastic in-depth studies, and that's where they've excelled for us. Noack and Frauss has provided us great surveying and construction engineering activity oversight. Flees and Van den Brink is a little newer than the other two. We've used them quite a bit for traffic signal work, because that is one of the things where we feel they excel. And the next item on the agenda is to give them traffic signal contract. All the companies that work for us get work. It's not necessarily equally distributed, but we try to make sure that everybody's doing something for us. This isn't necessarily the case to make sure that Noack and Frauss is doing something for us, but we feel in this particular case with the connectivity, which is the streetscape oversight, there's a lot of finesse that's involved with making sure those things go in correctly, and they have the ability, in our opinion, to make sure that in the field, that person that's going to be doing this project in the field can make decisions that may have been overlooked in the plans, or maybe slightly incorrect in the plans, or to make it work better. And we have confidence in them to do that because they've done it so many times.
Thanks.
Commissioner Bruce?
Could you describe in just a little bit more detail specifically what this project is? I know you say connectivity, but what does that mean? I think I have a general idea of it in my head, but maybe you could describe it a little bit for everyone as to exactly what the scope of that work is.
There's a lot of components to the work, but one of the big components is on Troy Street and on 3rd Street, around our park and around our city hall. We're going to be rebuilding a considerable amount of the sidewalks. Obviously, on the east side of Troy Street, there's some sidewalks already, but throughout the project, between the Farmers Market and City Hall, on the east side of City Hall, on 3rd Street, there's a lot of streetscape, a lot of ornamental lighting and electrical systems that'll be going in. There's irrigation systems. There's road paving. This particular project includes some green infrastructure with some permeable pavements and a whole host of other things that are going to be built to provide what happens in between the City Hall building and the park and the deck.
So it's not the buildings themselves, it's everything in between the buildings?
Yes.
Okay. Predominantly along Troy and 3rd Street?
Troy and 3rd Street, 11 Mile.
And 11 Mile too?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Macy?
I'd just like to ask, did Noack and Frauss bid on the traffic mitigation system? It's coming up on the next agenda item.
They did not. They don't have the staff expertise for that. So they did not submit a proposal.
Thank you.
Commissioner Douglas?
Yeah, I'd like to move approval of the award of the contract to Nowak and Frous as proposed.
Motion by Commissioner Douglas. Is there support? With no support, the motion dies. Commissioner Dubak.
So, I think legitimate concerns have been raised. I think we should, respect and listen to the recommendation of our professional staff. I think even with the added value that Mr. Callahan's talking about with their experience and our level of confidence with the quality of service they're going to provide, I think just I'm digesting it's about 50% higher, right? So I guess I remain open to that value being there. I feel like I'm not fully understanding how there's 50% more value there. Is it purely our level of confidence and experience and the efficiencies we know with coming from working with them? And have we thought through that is worth 50% more, paying 50% more?
Well, to us, it's important that we don't have staff involved with this project. We do not have the staff to train somebody new to oversee the construction of streetscapes. And we have a particular design in place that like I said, takes a certain level of innate knowledge and expertise to oversee that. It's more than rocket science.
Agreed, and I guess what I'm asking is when you look at these numbers, and if you were to do some rudimentary math, you're saying the value is there. Not just that Nowak and Frous is the right choice, but at this price, they're the right choice. This is what you're saying, that you're confident.
7% to us is a reasonable percentage for the oversight of a construction project. We asked them if they'd be willing to reduce the price, and they said no. They said they would lose money otherwise. There are people, consultants and contractors that will underbid a project just to get work. I'm not saying that Fleece and Vandenbrink did this, but their number of 4% is much lower than what we think it can reasonably be done at without either asking for more money later or burdening staff with a lot of questions, concerns, assistance over the next 2 years.
Okay, well, and I'd say we've had the experience of this type of second guessing those and going with the next lowest bidder or dramatically lower bidder and cause massive headaches for ourselves and staff with sub-quality product. I mean, and that's true. That has happened where we have challenged the higher dollars and said we're going to save money, we're going to be fiscally prudent, and save ourselves $100,000 and then cause ourselves $250,000 in problems.
Guilty.
Right. That has been done. I've done that. I don't want to do it again, especially when we're talking about something that's got to last for generations. So, with apologies to Commissioner Douglas for not seconding her, I'll move to approve the contract.
Second.
Finally, we have a motion to move, supported by Commissioner Douglas. Further discussion? Commissioner Macy.
So, I've heard a lot about Nowak and Frous and their qualifications, but I guess what I don't hear is why Fleece and Vandenbrink is deficient. Like, what do we think is a deficiency that they have? I get that you're saying that you're surprised that it could be this low, but if we were hoping Nowak and Frous would go lower than 7%, we can't be that much too low. So I'm wondering what it is that Fleece and Vandenbrink has or does not have that we think, what the deficiencies you saw in their proposal.
It's just a matter of their experience levels. So one of the things is experience with past and similar projects, and we kind of have to guess. We've seen a lot of their examples of work that they've done elsewhere, but we don't know how they arrived at doing that work or how they actually contracted for that work and what other, whether they designed it and oversaw it, or either one. So, it's like there's a comfort level that we have in-house that we don't want to make any mistakes with this project. It's under a lot of scrutiny. And we'd rather not risk taking a chance on somebody that's new. Not that we don't trust them, and maybe in the future they'll get a job where they actually get to design a streetscape and oversee it. There'll be opportunities for that in the future. But like I said, we've been working with Nolanka Frous for 20 years on streetscape projects, and there was a lot of training by staff in the city of Royal Oak to make sure that they did things the way that we want them done. And we don't know that we don't have that confidence level with the second low bidder.
So Mr. Callahan, just what I want to make sure what I hear you're saying is that for a project of this scale, this importance, you prefer to go with the experienced engineers that you know can execute the job and not tie up already very scarce city resources. But in the future, for smaller, less complicated projects, that there isn't an objection to using other providers, and even if they are the lowest cost, but for this particular project, given the scale of it and given the importance of it and the complexity of it, you are putting more weight on experience with the city.
That's what I'm getting at, yes.
All right. We have a motion on the table. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
Nay.
No.
Motion passes. Okay, that brings us to letter I of the consent agenda.
That was
J.
I.
I put so many pen marks on here, I can't even read. J, which is contract modification to CAP 1702, 2017 Sidewalk Improvement Program. I think this was Mr. LeVasseur, just by the sheer odds.
Yeah, if I'm understanding this correctly, basically, there was additional work and it's caused the need to modify the contract, or there's going to be additional work and that's caused the need for modification. I just want a little clarification. Is this something that's already been done with the expectation that this commission would simply approve it, or is this awaiting approval before it gets done?
The majority of the work that is increasing the contract price is done. That was the new sidewalks. So we did not include all the new sidewalks in the contract, the quantity for that in the contract, because in the past we've done that, and then this contract was substantially less. And contractors don't like to be paid a lot less than what they think they're allocating their workers and the time that they have. They don't bid other jobs when they think they have a big project, and when the commission didn't approve new sidewalks at other properties, that contractor was not very happy. So this year, we didn't include all the new sidewalks, not knowing that the commission was going to approve that much more. So when the commission approved those new sidewalks, we had to add quantity to the contract. Does that make sense?
I don't know. The impression I have is that staff said, let's move forward with doing additional work and with the expectation that the city would pay, but this body didn't approve that. Is that a mischaracterization of what happened here?
Not exactly. A significant amount of new sidewalks were directed to be installed by the city.
By the city commission.
After the contract, by the city commission.
City commission.
Yes, after the contract was let, that didn't have all the quantity for that in there. So when the city commission approved moving forward with building new sidewalks on Custer, Washington, Sunnybrook, Woodside, Delamere, additional quantity had to be added to the contract. Normally, our contracts say that the engineering department can approve additional work without the commission's approval. And in the past, many years ago, this would have been an information-only item. But right now, we bring all these contract mods because it does change the total price of the contract. But the work has been done, and the contractor is obligated to be paid. It's a formality to bring it to this board.
Well, here's what we have, all right? This is a proposal to increase the contract by $177,400.77. That is roughly an increase of 20% or so over what the original contract is. And I guess I just have a problem with this being treated as a formality that it would simply be brought to the commission to rubber stamp it. I don't believe that that's the appropriate way this should be handled. If there's an anticipation that there's going to be greater expenses, this should be brought to our attention before the work is done And it's either approved or not approved at that point.
Commissioner Dubuck?
Mr. Callen, am I understanding right, so this is where we directed for more sidewalks to be installed than you originally anticipated. The property owners there are being special assessed, correct?
They're being direct billed unless they ask for a
Or
payment
special
plan.
assessed.
Yeah.
So the property owners are paying because we're saying the sidewalk was installed, so we have the money that we've made residents pay. This is just us passing it on to the contractor for doing the work. Is that accurate?
That is correct. The contractor should be paid for the work that he did. We are upfronting the money, and we'll be collecting it from the property
Our
owners.
option is either just to hold on to the money that we have already asked residents to pay and not pay the contractor, which we're legally obligated to do, or pass the money to the contractor for the work that we told them to do. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. All right, I'll move for approval of the contract amendment. Thanks.
Motion by Commissioner Dubuck, supported by Commissioner Perush. Discussion? Commissioner Macy?
I have another question for Mr. Callahan. So would we pay them this right away? Because it says on here about the punch list, and we've heard from several residents about complaints about things that need to be repaired. And then when I looked into one of them, it seemed like there was a dispute between the contractor and the subcontractor, and it hadn't been done quite yet. So I'm just wondering, when do they get this money? Is it before the punch list is done or after the punch list is done?
The punch list items are a very small, in relationship to the whole contract, a small dollar amount. Our contracts withhold 10% of the fees until the contract is finally completed. So, needless to say, there's money being held right now against the contractor to complete the punch list and replace some of the sidewalks that didn't make it through last winter.
Thank you.
Commissioner LeVasseur?
I will vote in favor of this simply because I don't believe it would be appropriate for us to hold the contractor, basically, expect them to pay, to do all this extra work without compensation. But I want to make it very clear, I don't believe that this is the appropriate way that this should have been handled by city staff. This should have come up to us before the work was done. I don't believe in doing work and then approving contracts after the fact.
I'll be supporting this. I think we gave direction to the city engineer to add volume, so to speak, to this contract when we made the decision to do the extra sidewalks, and that's exactly what this is. We gave the permission, the contractor did the work, and now we get the bill for the extra sidewalk that we added to the original contract that came from here. So I think staff did everything they were expected and directed to do. Commissioner Gibbs.
I have a question. So if the residents have already been assessed these dollar amounts, does it include this 177 and change amount?
We have not billed for the new sidewalks yet to the residents on those streets that I listed, so
It will include this $177,000.
that is primarily these costs here.
Okay.
Commissioner Perush.
No, I think we've answered the question that I had. Thanks.
All right, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. All right, that brings us to item K, award of professional engineering services, contract CAP 1915, 2019 asphalt resurfacing improvements.
This is similar to one that we just spoke. Again, there was a recommendation for NOAC and FROS. Even though there was a lower bidder here, the numbers are not quite as extreme as what we previously saw, but I think if, in this instance, the difference is a $236,000 bid versus a $172,000 bid, with city staff recommending the higher bid, roughly 60-some thousand dollars higher, and I just want some very specific or detailed explanation from the city, from staff, why we should be going with the higher bid here.
In this particular instance, we asked for RFPs to be submitted, and NOAC and Fraus's RFP had a lot more detail about what level of service they were going to provide. A lot of the streets that we resurface with asphalt are very flat, and it takes a lot more effort to make sure that they drain properly, and NOAC and Fraus included in their RFP all the steps they were going to take to do that. Some of the other RFP submittals did not have that level of detail or offered to do far less. So we felt that when it came down to the finished product, that we would be getting by the level of oversight that they were going to give, that we were confident that we would get what we need as far as the street drainage. And to us, that's, they were actually going to go out and survey every street to make sure that it's, that there's a preliminary plan in place before they actually go out and survey it. And the other two proposals did not have that level of pre-planning.
Commissioner Perush?
We do this asphalt resurfacing every year. Who provided the service for us this year in 2018?
Engineering staff did that work.
So we didn't contract it out?
No, the prior 3 years, we contracted out, and OHM did that work for us.
Okay, so OHM has done this before for us?
OHM has done this before, and Nowak and Frous has designed up our streets before, knowing what it takes to make sure that they drain properly, especially on these overlay projects. You're not changing the shape of the road at all. You are trying to put asphalt back on top of an existing concrete roadway and making sure that it drains. And like I said, our roads are flat and they don't drain very well. So standing water is a big problem on local streets when we spend a lot of money and the residents have a bird bath in front of their driveway. So we want to make sure we don't have those problems.
And has Fleece and Vanderbrink ever provided this service for us, ever in the past?
They have not.
Okay, thanks.
Questions? Commissioner Macy?
I'll move approval of the resolution.
Motion by Commissioner Macy. Is there support? Supported by Commissioner Perush. Discussion? Commissioner LeVasseur?
I just want to get a little bit more into the qualifications of the low bidder here. You know, it's $60,000 difference, which is about, you know, the Nowak and Frous bid is about 30% or so higher, 33% or so higher than the low bid here. And, you know, the question is the qualifications of Fleiss and Vandenbrink, whether they're qualified or not qualified.
In this particular project, it doesn't come down necessarily to the qualifications. It comes down to the proposal that was written. The proposal said that they were not going to survey every street beforehand. And Nowak and Frous said they would survey the streets beforehand. And that's what the city prefers to have done, because it guarantees that we don't have problems later on. So I'm sure that Fleiss and Vandenbrink could oversee an overlay project like this. But we want to make sure that we get the final product that we promised to residents. And we are confident that Nowak and Frous will be able to give us that product.
Any other questions? Commissioner Perush?
I tend to agree with Mr. Callahan about being able to, or wanting the contractor to go out and survey the streets ahead of time. We've run into this problem years and years and years ago where, because the city has asphalt resurfacing everywhere in the city, but it's of different ages, put in by different contractors, done at different periods of time with different materials, there's a great deal of difference. It's one thing to go into a community like Troy or another newer community, Rochester Hills, whatever, where the asphalt paving, for the most part, all went in at about the same time, at least maybe within like a 10-year window of time. And all of the paving is fairly consistent in terms of quality and method of installation and so on. Where in Royal Oak, it's just this huge hodgepodge. And I can't imagine an engineering firm setting out to do this work without going out and looking at the streets individually before they start the work. So the fact that the low bidder didn't include that component in their bid is concerning to me. So that's one of the reasons why I'm not going to go with the low bidder on this project, because I think it's just a nightmare down the road when the project starts for them not having done that ahead of time.
Just because it's the lowest price doesn't mean that they're doing the same amount of work.
Yeah,
that's concerning.
absolutely. That's what it comes down to. And you're going to have to do it at some point.
Right. And we certainly don't want a whole lot of work when streets aren't draining right because we didn't survey them. Commissioner LeVasseur.
Well, the question I have then is, you know, how clear was the job described when we requested these bids, whether it was clear from the forgive me, I don't recall the term, the request for bids. How clear was that indicating we want the matter surveyed and we don't want this to proceed without surveying?
It didn't specifically say that in there. It said that, you must take efforts to assure that the road would drain properly when done. Even with our own staff, it's difficult to do. We put more effort into it than what the consultants have proposed. But the proposal from Fleece did not include a lot of preparatory work, and their price reflects that. They're hoping to get in and do lesser work, but in this case, we rely on what their proposals say.
Any other discussion? All right, I'm going to call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. All right, that brings us to item L, Award of Professional Engineering Services 2019 and 2020 Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality. Signal improvements.
This one, I note that we only have one bid. It's basically for, let me make sure I understand that the city's, the part that the city would be required to pay is $428,000, and there's funds that would be paid out of a grant, or am I misreading this?
Yes, there's $2.5 million in grant funds that we'll be getting to actually put towards the construction of signal rehabilitation and new signals if necessary on the 4 corridors. This is also a project that's going to take place over 2 years, so it'll be running through 2020.
Now, if I'm understanding this correctly, you requested proposals only from 3 firms, is that correct?
That is correct.
And 2 of the firms chose not to put in proposals?
Yes.
Did you receive some feedback as to why those 2 chose not to put in proposals?
Eckenfraus does not have a traffic signal component in their company, and OHM was just not interested in this particular project due to the time and parameters of managing a CMAQ type project.
All right. My thoughts on this is I'm not comfortable accepting a bid when there's only one bidder. And I appreciate that 2 of 3 companies chose not to, but I'm wondering if we need to open this up and seek other firms to place bids in this matter and not simply go with this firm because they were the only ones bothering to bid. If this were a smaller amount, maybe, but we're talking about $428,000 here.
Commissioner Macy.
Do they know they're the only bidder when they bid? They don't know, do they?
Nobody knows, no. Not till the time when the proposals are required to be submitted.
Any other questions? Motions? That doesn't count as a motion.
Is that outside? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's a little warm up here, so we have the
Go
window
down
open.
a view is.
Oh, the window's open.
Some
Okay.
hands. Commissioner Perush.
I'll move approval of this recommendation.
Motion by Commissioner Perush, supported by Commissioner Douglas. Discussion? All right, with none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes. All right, this brings us to item L, award, or no, we just did L. Item M, Planning Division request to fill vacancy planner position.
What is the anticipated cost of this from a salary and a benefit standpoint, this position?
This particular position at the top of the wage scale, which is not where we would start off, but we budget that way, is $117,669.
Is that salary or salary and benefits?
Salary and benefits. And this is replacing another position that's been previously budgeted there but not filled.
All right, but just to be clear, this is not replacing an employee we already have. It's a new body. It's
A new body. The position has been in the budget for some years, but it had never been filled. They changed it in this year's this year's budget to be a planner instead of being more of a customer service representative. And this is, of course, at a higher level than the customer service representative. But this was one that we discussed at length during the budget process.
Commissioner Perush.
How many planners do we have altogether?
We have two plus Tim.
Okay, so three altogether.
Tim is by trade a planner. His position is community development director, but he does do some of the planning.
Okay.
So we're seeing more than just planning.
So we have two, and is this two, or would this be three
This
then?
would be the third.
This would be the third. Okay,
Plus Tim.
okay,
So if you want to count Tim, it's the fourth.
Or part of Tim.
okay. That's smaller than I would have expected, given everything that is going on.
Right.
Everything that we've been handling with only 3 planners, including one who's the department head. You don't need to defend this at all. I fully agree that this is something that has to happen. I'm just surprised that we don't have many more.
No, we have 2 planner positions, and that includes the director of planning. That's my education and background as well as in the planning field. Their job duties are split into several things that aren't your traditional planner when you talk about land use and zoning. They're split between the block grant program and running the federal programs. They also do the brownfield authority, which a lot of times you have separate staff for in communities. So we are spread across a lot of activities.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner LeVasseur.
I know there's been some public comments on this, and I think they're legitimate points. We have a public safety millage that generates about $9.5 million per year, and people value the public safety. But a lot of those funds, $9.5 million per year, a lot of those funds basically are being used to free up funds from the general fund, which are now being used for a lot of new positions. And I don't believe that that's what the voters intended when they gave the city those funds. And we've got 17 new police officers. I would guesstimate that about $2 million of that 9.5 is going to those new police officers. I have a problem with the number, the sheer volume of new ads we're doing to our city's other staff here. I think we need to take a step back here and question whether we should be adding that much staff, whether we shouldn't be doing more to try to, to streamline the process and avoid all these additional employees.
Commissioner Douglas.
I said this 2 weeks ago, and I'll say it again tonight. A city is a service business. People expect things from us. They come up to our counter. They need to talk to somebody who knows something. Builders, developers come to us with plans, with site plans that need to be reviewed. We need people to review those site plans. And I'm going to refer to, I just came back from the Michigan Association of Planning annual conference, and in the opening keynote address, one of the speakers said, planning is the R&D department of a community. These are the people that look forward to your future, that think towards the future, and that help you become a better city, help you implement all of the things that we want here. More trees, smarter streets, a walkable community, all of the things that our people value come out of our planning department. So not only do I feel this position is essential just from a basic service department or measure, but also because it's about the future of our city.
Any other discussion? Commissioner Dubak.
I'm sorry. I'm a little tired of the grossly inaccurate political talking points around our public safety millage, which has been twice overwhelmingly supported by our residents. And while some people at the table might think that they are much smarter than the overwhelming majority of our residents, we've explained to our residents exactly what's going on. We're one of the safest communities in the state. Our property values are through the roof because this is a great place to live. And so you can keep telling a false narrative about what's happening with these dollars, but residents know that we have a highly functioning police force and a community that's very desirable to live in. Planning is an important part of that. We need to continue to provide the essential functions of a city. That's what we're here to do. Now, people can make political hay out of the fact that the city spends money, but we spend money responsibly in a way that's protecting the quality of life of our residents and their single greatest asset, which is their property value, which continues to go up because Royal Oak is a wonderful place to live that is well managed. If we're gonna have to debate every dollar that goes out the door just so that someone can get their bullet points for an election out that's a year away, this is gonna be a long, tiring process for everything we need to do at this table. So let's just move forward with hiring the planner that we all know that we need to do city business.
A motion would help do that.
I'll move for approval.
A motion by Commissioner Dubak. Is there support? Supported by Commissioner Perush. Any other discussion? Commissioner LeVasseur?
There's no doubt in my mind that Commissioner DeBuck's comments were aimed toward me. And let me just make sure I understand what narrative he thought was false. Is it that he believes it's false that the public safety millage is generating $9.5 million per year? Does he believe it's false that since we've adopted that, we've only added 17 police officers, or that the rough guesstimate of the cost of those 17 police officers is maybe $2 million of that $9.5 million per year? Precisely what is it that he believes is false here? There's no question the voters, they support public safety. I support public safety. You put something in front of the voters here and they want to support it, they're going to do it, but they trust us to look at the numbers, crunch the numbers, and make sure we're giving them correct information, make sure we're giving them the full story, and not simply using public safety as a selling point, as a marketing ploy to get them to approve a millage that opens up other funds from the general fund for other things such as this.
Mr. Wolf, you're out of order. You know better, sir. We have a motion on the table. Any other discussion? Okay, I'll just add that 100% of the public safety funds do go to public safety. We do have many needs in the city, and we do fund those out of the general fund, and a big part of the general fund also gets pulled over into public safety. So this is something that we put in place from when we first did the ICMA study. And, you know, we had a dramatic drop in police officers, for example. We've hired the right number back, not nearly where we were in the 90s, but thanks to the efforts of our chief and our police force, we have a solid plan in place that helps keep Royal Oak among one of the safest cities in the country. So just wanted to add that before I call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes. All right. This brings us to item N, request to set public hearing for the vacation of a portion of Bassett Avenue public right-of-way. I believe, was that Ms. Macy?
Yeah.
It was Ms. Macy. All right.
So I guess I just wanted to hear more about this before we just put it through for a hearing. I mean, I understand that we're just setting for a public hearing, we're not making a decision on it tonight, but if it were a request to vacate all of Main Street, I would, for a public hearing, I wouldn't just put that on the agenda, I'd want to talk more about it, and I guess I want to hear more about this vacation. I understand why it's good for the business and why they want it, I'm not sure why it's good for the city.
Well, very briefly, it is a request from the adjacent property owner. Staff doesn't have any objection to setting the hearing and considering the vacation, in that this segment of Bassett is much wider than Bassett to the east of the alley. This vacation would bring it down to align with the right-of-way from the east of the alley. So from that standpoint, there is no objection that the staff believes that there's a need to maintain the width of Bassett at this location. Having said that, the petitioner is proposing it as part of a redevelopment of the Serenade Motel. They are here if you wanted to hear from them, but they are also in for site plan review and planning commission consideration at an October meeting.
I'd like to hear from them. If I could hear
Well,
from the
Commissioner LeVasseur has a comment real quick.
It's more of a question than a comment. I'm wondering if we have the legal ability, so I'm directing this toward the city attorney, to condition the vacation of this area upon the development moving forward.
You do not, no.
The petitioners are willing to speak tonight.
I am Dennis Cowan with the firm of Plunkett Cooney, and I'm here representing the applicant for this. This is Mr. Nico Mosakaris, who has recently, in the last year or so, as you know, very north of the Serenay and Seville motels. He's become a neighbor. He bought a building that had fallen into disrepair, had been a marketing company that had been, that building was built in the 50s, and if any of you have driven by, I'll just say that his work speaks for itself. He made the decision, his company, to move forward and to purchase the Serenay Motel because it's a blight on our community and it is desperate need of redevelopment. He has national tenants, including the one which I mentioned in my letter to you, AutoZone. And if it's not AutoZone, which we believe it will be another one. But here's the key, and here's why this is good for the community. Because we will be rid, once and for all, of another one of these motels. And it has been the city policy for the last 30 years to seek redevelopment of these motels. And let me give you an example. Fifth Third Bank, and I happen to represent them when we did this, we actually got a street closed. And the neighbors were extremely happy that not just the street was closed, but the Kingswood Motel, which was 2 buildings on either side of that road, was gone once and for all. So we're asking for a very small ask. This is a 20 by 98.5 piece of property. It is not buildable. It is not maintained by the city. It has always been maintained. The Serenay may not have maintained their building, but they maintain that little parcel. So it doesn't affect the street. It doesn't affect the sidewalk. It will be part of the development. It actually will allow us to have more parking on site. And the way this works, unfortunately, and it's a good point Mr. LeVasseur made, and it's a point that I think you make every time you have vacation of a street. And so, or any aspect of and by the way, it should be right away because it's really not the street. The streets are already there, and I know you had extensive discussions about Bassett in the last couple of years, and finally it has been paved. And but I think the neighbors will be overjoyed to know that this property is going to be redeveloped because I will tell you, not only will they be overjoyed, but the commercial neighbors are overjoyed. So I think this is a very small ask that we're asking. We will be glad to bring, and we fully intend to meet with all of our commercial and residential neighbors prior to the meeting to explain exactly what the proposal is. We did submit for review plans to the city, but here's how this works in the real world with national tenants. You go through about 5 steps with them, and the step we're at now is kind of in the middle, where they want to know that we have the acquired property. So in good faith, not knowing if we were going to be able to get this vacation of the right of way, Mr. Mosakaris went forward and bought the property. It is closed down at this time. It doesn't have any tenants. The people who were there were moved out. Actually, at the end, it was mostly family of the owner that was living in that particular facility. He also did it a little bit as a defensive measure. You may have noticed several weeks ago that at least 5 built premises had their windows knocked out, and it was done by somebody who was either staying at the Seville or the Serenay. Okay, that much we pretty much know. So, you know, Mr. Mosakaris said enough is enough. He wants to redevelop it. He'd love to redevelop some other hotel properties on Woodward. But this is not somebody who's just helicoptering in, going to do a project. He's going to live with whatever that project is every day because he lives half a block north of it. He's very committed to this project, and I think it'll be a credit to the city when it's completed. Again, this is a very small piece of property. It doesn't have any value to or worth to anyone else. I will say that, although I can't disclose it, property on Woodward, even for hotels, are not cheap. So, and building these days, as you know, building anything's at a premium because you can't find contractors and people to do the work, so you pay for it. But he's committed, and I applaud him for it, to take forward with a bold step, go ahead and buy it, rely in good faith that we could come forward to the city for really what is a sliver of property. So we do ask your indulgence to help us rid the city of this blight, and then we can move forward with AutoZone, show them that we have the acquired property, and then, of course, move towards a lease and a site plan approval.
Questions? Commissioner Douglas.
Well, all we're doing here is authorizing a public hearing.
Yep.
And I, certainly I'm going to have questions to ask as part of that public hearing process. Definitely want to hear from the neighbors, but I think it's in the public interest to hold that hearing, and I'm going to move that we schedule it.
A motion by Commissioner Douglas, support by Commissioner LeVasseur. Discussion? Commissioner Perush.
Having lived with motels on this Woodward Avenue for as long as I have, not directly and literally, but very, very close to them, including the Oak, which was at the corner of Webster and Woodward a long, long time ago, every single one of them is a nightmare, and it has been that way for decades. And any opportunity to get rid of yet another one is a golden opportunity as far as I'm concerned. So I know we have to set a public hearing in that process we have to go through, but I am thrilled that this guy is going away.
Well, we'll call the police chief for testimony on how important it is for these
Oh,
hotels
yeah.
to close.
Let's just bring the annual log of calls and what exactly and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
So, anyway.
Yeah.
Commissioner Macy.
I'll just say I'm going to support this as well to go forward with the hearing, but I do have some questions again. We'll have some more questions again. I mean, it looks like we're, first of all, losing some trees, and then there was another opportunity where there was an unused piece of land that they wanted to take that sign tower for, and there was a lot of talk about whether or not we were going to vacate that without any benefit coming back to the city, and I think that's something we should consider for this property as well.
All right, I'll just add that, there is, I'm going to be supporting, obviously, the public hearing. I had an opportunity to meet with the petitioner, examine the property. I rode my bike there and rode it back. Very hot day. Probably should have thought about that. When you look at Bassett here, I mean, there's not a lot of use. You look at the neighborhood street there. There's no way that we're ever going to make Bassett Road, a 4-lane, artery in the city. So if this helps shape up the property to make it more conducive to getting a productive business operating there, then to me, I really want to hear the merits of it at a public hearing. I think I know some of them already, but I'd like to hear what the public has to say about it. I'd also like to commend Nico as well, because we had concerns about some of the folks living in the Serenade Motel right now. And I will just say, I feel like we're working with somebody here in good faith, because he, took it upon himself to make sure, out of his own pocket, to make sure to help those people relocate and find an alternative place to live. So I think that's, a good deed done by a petitioner here that really wants to not just bring an investment in, but truly somebody that is trying to improve the community. Sometimes people don't get credit for the nice things they do, and I know you probably would never say it yourself, but I wanted to make sure everyone knew. So I look forward to the hearing. With that, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. We have a hearing. Thank you for bearing with us tonight, gentlemen.
Thank
Long
you,
meeting.
and I would just say, we'll let you know when we're going to meet with the neighbors, and if there are any questions anyone has in advance of the public hearing, we'd be glad to show them the property, show them the plans, but we'll get all the information to you and make sure we come fully prepared to answer the questions, so we can prove the benefit to the community, which I think will be a great benefit. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, this brings us to item O, which is Planning Commission recommendation for zoning ordinance text amendments for food trucks. I requested that this one be pulled off. In fact, we had somebody directly impacted by this particular ordinance come and ask if we could postpone it. So he and some others on 4th Street who, would be most particularly impacted by this ordinance change have an opportunity to talk to the commission and come back and hear their position on the ordinance. I don't think that's an issue. I don't think there's any urgency to reject it. I don't think there's any urgency to pass it. And I think in light of the request of those who might be most directly impacted by it, I was hoping that my colleagues would entertain a motion to postpone this until the next meeting. Commissioner LeVasseur.
I'll make that motion, and that doesn't mean I'm necessarily going to support the changes to the ordinance, but I do believe that this deserves further attention.
We have a motion by Commissioner LeVasseur with support by Commissioner Gibbs. Discussion? Commissioner Perush.
I'll vote in favor of this because I have no objection to waiting a little bit, but I will note that there were 4 public hearings on this issue before the Plan Commission in July, August, or in September, and I also believe that the Downtown Development Authority weighed in on this as well. So prior to this day, there has been a lot of opportunity for public comment on this issue. But I'm willing to wait another couple of weeks.
All right, any other discussion? All right, with none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. All right, that brings us to item P, Planning Commission Recommendation Master Plan Update.
Ms. Klein asked that we pull this from the consent agenda and discuss this a little bit more detailed. I think that the main concern is that the public have the opportunity to put some input into our master plan. And I'd like to get perspective from staff as far as what the process is, what the opportunities will be for people to share their thoughts, their concerns with us.
Mayor, members of the commission, I would point you to page 2 of the commission letter at the bottom through the top of the page 3, in the sense of if the commission moved forward with supporting the planning commission action, staff would put together a request for proposals to hire an outside consultant to prepare the master plan based on the target approach that the City Commission and Planning Commission in joint session directed staff to put together. You'll see the first part of that is significant community engagement meetings. I can't tell you exactly how many that would be at this point, and that we haven't drafted the RFP and we haven't heard back from the consultants, but there would be several opportunities for input at the very beginning. And then there would be opportunities for input as you move through that process with the consultant on the various sections as they prepare drafts based on the original inputs. And then obviously the required public hearings in order to adopt it. So I can't answer exactly how many meetings there would be. The last time we did a master plan, it took 2 years, and I want to say we had, if not 50 meetings. It was a very lengthy process. So
You're talking about the process that was roughly 20 years ago, not five,
yeah,
6
1999. So I don't have an actual number, but the whole intent and discussions that we heard from both the City Commission and the Planning Commission was for that community engagement up front. And as I told the Planning Commission, if you would like to see the RFP before we distribute it and approve it, I'd be happy to bring it for your review. Generally, we don't, but I'd be happy to do that.
Commissioner Douglas.
And I will say that the item that Mr. Twing referred to, the sentence that says conduct public engagement to gather input, in his original draft said conduct public meetings. And in my opinion, that narrows the scope way more than I want to see it narrowed. I think we need a very robust engagement process involving as many people as possible. We heard from people today asking for that. And in fact, this is the plan that will get us that public comment, assuring us that the plans that we make, the ways we move forward, are consistent with our community values.
Anybody else? Commissioner Perush?
I just want to, first of all, kind of clarify what our obligations are under the state statute. The state planning statute, as I understand it, suggests that when a community puts together a master plan, it ought to do so with the anticipation that it's going to be good for 20 years. Is that kind of what the statute says?
Well, you generally are going to look out a 20-year period. The statute requires that the Planning Commission look at it every 5 years from the adoption. And at that 5-year period, obviously you have the option to say that the plan is still consistent and needs no modifications. And the Planning Commission has done that on several occasions. They can look at it and determine that the entire document needs a rewrite because it's no longer consistent, and that was discussed at the joint session. And then you can take a targeted approach in the sense of identifying areas that you think need adjustment, and some of those have been identified in this. So the intent of the statute is that the community look at it every 5 years. It's not the intent that you rewrite it every 5 years. And then having said that, if you looked at it at the fifth year out from and determined it was okay, but
sometime between that and the next 5 years you decided you wanted to, some issue came up, you obviously can look at it in the interim period too. It's not a magic bullet that you can only do it at 5-year increments, but it's intended to make the community look at it every 5 years.
That was my understanding as well. And so, given those timeframes, when does our 20-year period start? Is that the 1991 date? Are we still working with an overall master plan which dates from 1991?
Well, the last time we actually took a formal action was in 2012. 2017 would have been the 5th year, and that's when we started this dialogue as to what did we want to do with the master plan at that point. And the fact that we've been looking at it since 2017, we haven't really just done anything other than have a lot of discussion and passed a few resolutions, I think meets the intent that we're studying it and we're trying to make a decision. If you move forward with this, and obviously that's what we'll do, and do a consultant and the RFP, and we'll start to rewrite.
So the last even modest modification that we made was in 2012?
Right.
Okay, so that's,
Well, the base document is still the 2012 document.
okay, so it's 7 years old at this
Yes.
point. So we've kind of missed you have to look at it every 5 years.
Well, as I said, we started looking at it.
In 17, but we just didn't do anything with it. Nothing formally with it then.
Nothing formal, as we're still waiting for final direction.
Yeah, I know, we've had discussions for quite a while. Okay, all right, that's it for now.
Any other questions? Any motions? Commissioner Douglas.
Yes, I'll move the resolution as submitted.
Motion by Commissioner Douglas, there's support. Supported by Commissioner Macy. Further discussion? Commissioner Prush.
I raised this concern when we were doing this in the planning meetings, that I think that this is a process that needs to be done. We're overdue, at least in terms of the deadlines, not hard deadlines, but the suggested timelines that are set forth in the state statute. But I just don't think this is the time to do it. I think there are too many other issues going on that the city is involved with that are almost to the point of overwhelming the community at this point. To add this on top of it, I think, is going to be it's going to be a disservice, I think, to this process, because I don't think we're going to get a good product out of it, because we're just not going to have the time and energy in order to do it effectively, given everything else that is going on. And that is based upon what is already going on now. What we are forgetting, I think, is that starting later on in the year and then into the spring, we are going to be implementing a stormwater utility system, which is another whole new system which will be citywide. Every single property owner will be affected by it. Every single property owner will be assessed for stormwater discharge in varying degrees depending upon the nature of their property. And everyone at some point will have an opportunity to comment on that and perhaps tweak it based on the nature of their property. That is going to be an enormous project in order to do it right. And I just think that having that, which we must do in order to get rid of that crazy sewer millage, which we all hate, this, and have only that in place this year, and put a stormwater utility in place that is based upon discharge for every property, which is the correct way to do it. That's, having worked on the Stormwater Task Force, I have some idea of how complex and time-consuming that process is going to be. It gives me sleepless nights just thinking about it by itself. But to have this process piggybacked on top of it, I think it's going to overwhelm us, and I think it's going to overwhelm the community. So I think it's a process that has to be done. I just don't think this is the time to do it. I think if we wait a year, we get the stormwater utility in place, then perhaps next November or October, we can consider it again and move forward with it. I just don't think this is the right time to do it.
Commissioner Gibbs?
I tend to agree with Commissioner Perush that there's too many other things going on right now, and the storm sewer is a huge, huge thing that is going to be affecting each and every one of us. I don't believe that the time to do this is right now. the master plan, so.
Commissioner LeVasseur?
I agree with Commissioners Perush and Commissioner Gibbs in that, our residents could use a little bit of a breather with everything else that's going on. And the better time to look at this is when we have a little bit of the dust settled and people are able to take a step back, reflect on it. When we have so much changing in the city right now, it's much harder for people to see the big picture and to give some perspective on this.
Anybody else? All right, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
See the hand of the nays? Okay, the motion fails. All right.
So,
Commissioner Douglas.
well, the city commission in November of 2017 instructed staff to prepare an RFP, so that action still remains. Are we going to leave that lay? Do we need to rescind that? And saying that, I realize that a commission cannot bind a subsequent budget year to any sort of action, but I would like to at least see a gesture of faith here at this table, since we'll all be here a year from now, that we will, when we consider the 1920 fiscal year, put this back on the table.
Commissioner Perush?
I will make a motion then that we rescind our recommendation from November 13th, 2017 to develop an RFP, and I'll explain why, if there is a second.
We have a support by Commissioner LeVasseur. Okay, discussion?
And the reason why is that now all of a sudden we have a stormwater utility issue in front of us, which we did not in November 2017. So that's the difference.
Okay. Any other discussion? Commissioner Newbuck?
Commissioner Perush makes a point, I think, not just about community fatigue, but demands on staff. And starting up the stormwater utility is going to be a significant drain on staff in addition to the Civic Center project and Normandy Oaks, all of which we're trying to see through. And I think to be respectful and strategic as far as how we're using staff time and ensuring that they have the time and ability and bandwidth to do everything to the quality residents expect, we need to put this out a little bit further.
Commissioner Douglas?
Well, we will be doing our 2019-20 planning and goal setting. We've got the date set for that in November and December. I'll make sure it's on the agenda.
That's fair.
I believe she will. I believe that
sure.
when she says that. All right, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Okay. I believe we are now done with the majority of non-consent consent agenda.
Is it intermission time yet?
Yes. This brings us, I think we can muscle through the rest of the agenda here. This brings us to item number 7, which is the Michigan Liquor Control Commission licensed establishments, a public hearing for Wahlburgers, 30955 Woodward Avenue, plan of operation.
Mayor, City Commission, this request is to approve this plan of operation. The license is being transferred from Bloomfield Hills to 30995 Woodward Suite 605. That's a new Northwood development. In addition, the applicants are requesting a new Sunday sales permit and an outdoor service permit. The applicants will be doing business as Wahlburgers. The applicants are ACW Royal Oak LLC, which is owned by ACW Holdings LLC, closest to Flint LLC, and Elrig Restaurant Holdings LLC. ACW Holdings sole member is Antonio Cataro. Closest to Flint, sole member is Mark Wahlberg, and Elrig Restaurant Holdings sole member is Gabrielle Suchman. The applicants have purchased the liquor license for $80,000. This is the same license that was originally proposed for Taco Bell Cantina. The applicants will spend approximately $720,000 on furniture, fixtures, equipment, and inventory. They will lease the building from Beaumont Hospital for just over $19,000 per month, and The funds for these will come from business sales. Mark Wahlberg started Wahlberg's concept with his family in Massachusetts, growing up in the restaurant industry. And he has interest in locations in several states that are listed. In all his locations, he's only had one liquor violation out of Massachusetts for sale to a minor. Gabriel Suchman owns and operates a commercial real estate investment and development company. He has interest in 3 Wahlberg locations in Taylor, as well as Cincinnati, Ohio, and Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He has no violations. Antonio Cotero has been involved in the restaurant business for many years. He has held 12 different licenses over the last 33 years. He currently has interest in 3 active Michigan licenses, Bella Patia in Birmingham, as well as Wahlburgers in Detroit and Taylor. He also has a license in Cleveland and Cincinnati, Ohio, both Wahlburgers. He has an extensive MLCC violation history, which is listed below. Currently, there are only 2 Wahlburgers locations in Michigan, in Taylor and Detroit. We spoke with representatives from both their communities. They describe them as well-run operations with responsible ownership. The applicants have employed David Johnson to be the general manager for Wahlburgers. He has been in the restaurant business since 1998 and has worked for Wahlburgers brand since 2016, and he'll be responsible for all day-to-day operations at this location. If approved, Wahlburgers will operate as a casual, comfortable, family-friendly restaurant. Hours of operation will be Sunday to Thursday from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. and Friday and Saturday from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. The menu will feature specialty hamburgers, sandwiches, salad, various sides. They'll have approximately 5,100 usable square feet. Total proposed interior seating will be for 150 patrons, including 14 seats at the bar. The applicants are also requesting an outdoor service area, which will be located on private property, directly adjacent to the building, which will seat 76 patrons. Final overall capacity will be set by the police department. The applicants are not requesting either an entertainment permit or dance permit. Our investigation has determined that this is a good business owner. They'll hire an experienced manager, and we think the applicants meet the necessary requirements for the police department, and we do not oppose this request. We would point out that if approved, the applicants still have to comply with all planning, zoning, and building requirements and restrictions. And I believe the applicant's representative, Ms. Allen, is here.
Do you have any questions for the chief? All right. Questions for the chief?
I'll ask questions.
Commissioner LeVasseur?
With regard to Mr. Cutraro, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing the name correctly, I assume that he's been operating liquor establishments in the last 20 years. It looks like the violations are primarily 20 years or more old.
Yes, that's true.
Is that a fair assessment?
Yes.
All right. I presume that if there were continuing problems the last 20 years, you would have come up with those.
Yes, and I'd point out this is a different type of restaurant than his other restaurants were more nightclubs back in that day, so they're more prone to those type of violations.
Any other questions for the chief? Ms. Allen? Welcome.
I'm Kelly Allen here tonight with the Wahlburgers team. Mark's in LA. They said we could FaceTime him, but I don't think that's a good call at this point. It's even late for him right now. This is Gabe Schuckman. He is one of the owners. This is Dave Johnson. He's the general manager. Where's Curtis Nardine? He is the COO. Have worked and known Curtis in the restaurant industry for a very long time. As usual, the chief and his staff has done a great job investigating this, putting it together for you. Certainly any operational questions we can answer for you tonight. Just with regard to Mr. Cutraro, he's known at this table as Nino Cutraro. He owned Sangria here in Royal Oak, wrong city, for many, many years and didn't have any issues at that establishment. So that violation history goes way back into the late 90s, early 2000s for primarily nightclub types of venues in Detroit. Very good operating record here in the state of Michigan and Ohio and all of the other states that they do business in. Very excited to be coming to Royal Oak. Mark did come and tour this site as well as the other owners, and worked with Beaumont, the developer and the new shopping center over there extensively to get this going. So if approved tonight, next big step is trying to get building plans approved. They have been submitted. Nino does tend to work quickly. So as soon as there's a building permit, if approved, they're going to go like a fast train and want to be open as soon as possible.
Thank you. Any questions for the petitioners? Commissioner Douglas.
You know, Ms. Allen, I think if I put my mind to it, I could get 4 votes at this table to delay the decision until Mr. Wahlberg shows up to make his appeal in person.
I was gonna say the same thing.
Commissioners Gibbs, Perush, and Macy, perhaps?
I live right by there. He could stay at my house.
Oh my gosh.
So I could,
You wouldn't have to rent a hotel or anything.
So thoughtful.
Should we make that a resolution?
Wahlberg absolutely loves, the state of Michigan absolutely loves Metro Detroit. He wishes he was here right now, and he can't wait to be back here very, very soon.
He'll be here for the opening.
He'll be here for the opening, and he spends a lot of time in Michigan. He can't wait to be back here again. So he'll be back here very, very soon. So we'll see what we can do.
No, it sounds like a very sound proposal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or unusual requests?
It's not that unusual.
I can have a whole long list of questions, but I'll stick to the nuts and bolts here. When do you think, or when is the estimated opening date of this? I know that there's a lot of work going on. I live spitting distance from there. I know there's a lot of work, construction going on currently, because I hear it. But when is the estimated opening date?
Literally going to depend on the building permits.
Okay.
As soon as they have a building permit in hand, it'll take them 60 days
Right.
Okay.
to build out.
Sometime next year?
Well, we were hoping this year, but
Okay.
again, it will depend on the permitting process.
All right. Well, I don't have any questions. I mean, I've done some research on Wahlburgers. It's a tough job.
Got to meet him.
Had to do
You
it.
met him.
Yeah.
I had the opportunity to meet Mr. Wahlberg. Seems like an upstanding gentleman. And so, you know, I have no concerns at all. I think you guys will be successful. But we will open up a public hearing. I'm not sure if there's anyone here to speak tonight, but, you know, if we have any additional questions after the public hearing, we'll bring you back up. So we appreciate your patience tonight. A lot of things to discuss in the city, a lot of positive things happening in the community, a lot of change happening. And so, you know, sticking with us this evening, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, I'm going to open up the public hearing. Same rules apply as do for public comment. Anybody here for the public hearing? All right, we'll close the public hearing and bring the meeting back up here. All right, we have a, okay, Commissioner Douglas knows what to do.
Move approval of the resolution, or resolutions? Resolution.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Douglas. Is there a second?
Second.
You know what, I'm going to give it to Commissioner Gibbs because she seemed most enthusiastic about, you know. All right, we have a motion on the table. Is there discussion? Okay, I'll just add that I'm sensing that this is going to be a very positive vote, and we welcome Wahlburgers to Royal Oak. We think you're going to be a fine addition up there in the new development we have just outside Beaumont Hospital. Again, adding to the fabric of what's exciting in Royal Oak, and we thank you for making the effort to come out tonight and make your petition. So, all right, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? The motion passes. All right, we can have a burger and beer at Wahlburgers.
And I know Mark's very, very excited to be here for Dream Cruise, so he can't stop talking about it. He's a huge car guy, so.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, he's in a good spot for Dream Cruise.
Yeah.
Yeah, walking distance.
Thank you, everybody.
Is that still open?
Yeah, I'm walking distance.
All right, gentlemen, have a great night. All right. If there's any focus left in this commission, we can go on to item number 8, which is an equally exciting topic, approval of concurrence form regarding the request for declaratory ruling. Hold everyone back on this one. Mr. Rassel.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners.
The Great Lakes Water Authority, the Detroit Water and Sewer Department, and Oakland County Water Resource Commissioners filed a request for a declaratory ruling with the MDEQ to challenge the validity of the MDEQ's lead and copper rules. A copy of that request is attached. It's quite lengthy, but the GLWA and the filers identified almost 30 statutory and legal defects in the lead and copper rules. GLWA asked its first and second tier customers to file a concurrence, request for concurrence, and SACWA is our representative and passed that. In turn, SACWA asked each member community to also pass a concurrence form, and I'll defer to the city attorney to explain what the concurrence form is saying.
Mr. Gill.
Mayor and Commissioner, just to give you a little bit more background, although I think Mr. Rassel covered everything pretty well. The request that's been made has been made in relation to a petition that's been filed by the Great Lakes Water Authority, by the City of Detroit, and also by the Water Resources Commissioner. Friday, I talked with Pete Webster, who is an attorney with Dickinson Wright. I think most of you know Mr. Webster, but he's the attorney that represents the Drain Commissioner's Office, the Water Resource Commissioner's Office. And in terms of background, what happened here is the process for the state to amend the lead and copper rules. The proposed rules were announced. There was a public comment period. All of the organizations that are asking us to support this petition tonight filed comments or objections, if you will, questions about the proposed regulations. Most of those questions or comments were not adequately addressed, according to Mr. Webster. Regardless of the comments and questions, the rules were basically implemented by MDEQ. There is a process in place under the Administrative Procedures Act whereby the standards that have been implemented can be challenged, but as a prerequisite to any legal challenge of the regulations that have been put in place, there has to be a request for a declaratory ruling to the MDEQ first. Essentially, the MDEQ is being asked to acknowledge that there are some problems, either procedurally or substantively, with what they have done up to this point in time. No one is actually very optimistic that the request for a declaratory ruling will prove to be effective. Again, the consensus is that the questions and comments weren't addressed properly when they were raised during the review period prior to the implementation of the rules. So, but although the request for the declaratory ruling may not prove to be fruitful, it is a requirement before any legal action can be taken to actually challenge the lead and copper rules. So this may amount to nothing more than a step in the process. You'd like to think it would be more effective and more productive, but if nothing else, it is a step that needs to be taken before any of the entities and organizations that are involved can actually challenge what the MDEQ is proposing in a court of law. So we would recommend approval of the resolution as submitted by Mr. Rassel.
Questions for Mr. Rassel or Mr. Gillum? Commissioner Douglas.
Not a question, but a comment. I serve on the Michigan Municipal League's Infrastructure and Transportation Policy Committee. This matter came before them. The committee members, along with MML itself, were uniformly horrified at what this rule requires. It requires public entities to provide service to pipes that are on private property. Furthermore, it's an egregious unfunded mandate inconsistent with Headley or Prop 8? Headley. It's just an awful, awful thing, and we should vote on this resolution with all due speed.
Commissioner Perush.
The real property law section of the State Bar of Michigan is also appalled at these rules because it involves government intrusion onto private property without permission. And they have also objected to it. So there's a lot of people who are upset at the way this is being handled. Not arguing with the fact that lead and copper in water levels above certain levels are not a serious health concern, but it's the way it's being managed in the state of Michigan that is drawing the concern. So there's a lot of opposition to the way these rules were put together.
Commissioner LeVasseur.
I'll move the resolution.
Motion by Commissioner LeVasseur. Is there support? Supported by Commissioner Perush. Further discussion? All right, with none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, just one other follow-up comment on that too, and it's not an issue that we have to address tonight, but in terms of a potential challenge to the lead and copper rules, actual legal filings, there may be an issue as to whether or not SACWA actually has standing to bring a challenge because of the fact that they don't actually own any water lines. They don't actually, per se, provide water lines, whereas the city does. So there's a possibility that SACWA may be looking for member communities to step up and potentially be a named plaintiff in litigation down the road. So again, we don't have to decide that tonight, but again, tuck that away. And if it gets to the point that there is litigation down the road that SACWA is going to be involved in, we may bring the issue back to the table.
Commissioner LeVasseur.
I'm assuming that if that becomes an issue, there will be a motion brought, and that could then be brought to our attention, and perhaps we could address it at that time?
Absolutely. I mean, I would assume it would come in the form of a request, maybe even from SACWA, that, yeah, it would be an agenda item, and there could be full discussion and disclosure on that before any action is taken.
All right. Thank you. This brings us to item number 9, recommendations for non-paving alternatives for Mount Vernon Boulevard.
Good evening, once again, Mayor's Commissioners. You asked for a report on a solution for the condition of unimproved roads in Royal Oak, specifically Mount Vernon in Washington and Custer. And coming up with a solution was quite difficult. I do know that this past calendar year, we have graded Mount Vernon 5 times in the last calendar year and have bladed it another 3 to 4 times. The difference between grading and blading is we're just scraping the surface, getting anything down about an inch to smooth it out kind of stuff. When we grade the road, we're digging into the road a good 4 to 6 inches, turning the soil up and re-smoothing it out. I don't need to dwell on the fact that drainage in this area is quite poor. The road actually sits lower than the shoulder of the roads on both sides of the street, so there's really no place for the water to go. We did have Oakland County Road Commission come out and take a look at it and said that they would not recommend changing the way we're maintaining the road if we want to keep it as a unimproved road.
Commissioner Macy.
I believe at public comment, several people who were impacted asked that we postpone this until the October 22nd meeting. I'd like to make a motion to do that.
Motion by Commissioner Macy. Is there support? Supported by Commissioner LeVasseur. Discussion? Okay. With none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes.
October 22nd?
October 22nd.
Okay,
You got a cruise
all right.
booked?
Not yet, but I'll tell you now.
All right, item number 10, approval of appointments committee recommendations. Commissioner Dubuck.
Thank you, Mayor. Appointments Committee met 2 Mondays ago. I went through all the applications. It's awesome to see so many residents putting in applications, and we're getting a wide variety of folks, like longtime residents, people who've only been here for a year. So we went through those and discussed them all pretty thoroughly. We're unanimously recommended everyone that we've put forward, but there is one amendment that I would like to recommend, and it is my fault that there was a small group of applications sent to us earlier in the day, on the day that we met, and I did not see them. And for animal shelter, actually, Dawn Rapinski had applied, who's been a very active volunteer there and is supportive of the shelter, and the board members have actually reached out asking that we consider her application to sit on this board. And I'm very aware of the work she's been putting in there, and that her contributions would be much appreciated on the Animal Shelter Committee. So with no disrespect to the individual who we picked, who, I think we were very thoughtful about this, I do think Ms. Rapinski is the right position to put in that position at this time. So with the amendment of the Animal Shelter Committee appointment recommendation being changed to Ms. Dawn Rapinski, I'll move for approval of these recommendations.
Yeah, motion by Commissioner Newbuck, support by Commissioner Gibbs. Discussion? Commissioner LeVasseur?
I serve on the Animal Shelter Committee. I can say that Ms. Rapinski has been a regular attendee at those meetings. She's been very active, very engaged. She's assisted with fundraising. It is something she's passionate about. I do believe she'd be the appropriate person to put on the committee.
Ms. Macy?
I was just going to ask if Ms. Graham was informed about this change.
I don't even know that she was informed of this decision unless she read the
Okay, so
the
she didn't know
agenda.
to begin
They're
with.
informed after they're officially appointed.
So she wasn't present at the meeting?
No.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other discussion? Call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. All right. This brings us to item number 11, which is the second request to schedule goal-setting special city commission meetings. I sense Mr. Krazan behind me.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and City Commission. After our last meeting, I spent some time trying to coordinate everybody's calendars, put out a quick poll to try and select some dates. You've received 3 dates, November 14th, December 1st, and December 19th, as suggested dates that seem to work the best. Obviously, they don't all work perfectly for everybody, but they were the best ones that we're able to find. Also, the proposal from Dr. Oren is attached to the letter. Similar process to what we've done in the past. Again, we'll be looking at taking a quick assessment of our decision-making process, looking at the critical issues facing the city, and then setting priorities around those.
Questions? Either everyone's doing Minesweeper, they're checking their phones for their
Calendars.
calendars. Commissioner Bruce?
If we pick these 3 dates, I will not be able to be here on December 1st. But I know that none of these dates are perfect for everyone, so, but I'm just letting everybody know that.
Well, I was going to be yachting in Monaco at that time, but since you're not going to be there, I guess I'll stay and be present. Commissioner Macy?
I apologize for this because I RSVP'd for the last doodle poll that I could do either 18th or 19th, but actually I found out in the interim that my daughter has a choir performance on the 19th, so I will, and I am the duty parent that day. Yes, Judy. So I will be able to be here on the 19th.
It's like 3 months from now, and you already know you're the duty parent? There's no negotiation?
I guess there could be negotiation, but still there's a choir performance. Maybe you missed that part.
Shar, duty happens. And it's that time of night. Not sure if that was a dad joke or just generally inappropriate.
That was a teenage joke.
The 18th was another date that was potentially available for, I think, roughly 5 or 6 members.
Just now, when I was looking at it just now, I mean, I know you probably have more information than I do, but it looks like there were actually more people who could come on the 18th than the 19th. Well, maybe some people just didn't vote, but.
18th is fine for me.
So far I'm hearing just we have 7 people, there's 21 constellations here with the 3 meetings, and I'm hearing just 2 conflicts within the 21 constellations. Am I correct when I hear that?
No, because the 18th and the 19th, some people had already asked for RSVP, but they can't come.
Is that true, 19th?
So the 19th, it says Kim and Don can't be here.
Don?
Not me.
Oh, you RSVP'd no for the date.
Oh.
Okay, it's just me,
Okay, just you?
Just me, I guess.
So, Commissioner Douglas.
Move approval of these 3 dates and times.
We have a motion by Commissioner Douglas, a support by Commissioner Macy. Discussion? All right, with none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes. We have some dates.
If I may, there was also the second part of that resolution regarding the proposal.
James.
Oh, yeah, technically your motion was for the dates, Commissioner Douglas.
Oh, sorry, okay, what did I do wrong here?
We have to approve.
Hire somebody.
Yeah. Compensate the individual that's going to be conducting.
So moved.
Okay, we have motion by Commissioner Douglas. Is there support?
Yeah.
Support by Commissioner Perush. Discussion? All right, with none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. All right. That brings us to item number 12, which is approval of ballot proposals information letter. Who's taking this one today? Mr. Johnson?
Let me start. It's a letter that was provided in the packet. We did get Commissioner Perush, while watching the University of Michigan game, was inspired to rewrite the letter, and she improved it considerably. I think if she had written it last night instead, it would be even better.
Lions game was exciting.
Yeah, I actually watched that game. After the first couple of minutes of Michigan, I knew it was going to be a blowout, so that was, I left the room.
But both Judy and I do feel that you improved it considerably. You did address one of the things that's been raised as a concern at public comment. The line about the efforts of the task force is not in here.
Yep.
I did change this back to use average residential taxable value because that's a real number. That's the mean of residential taxable value. And I think that's more appropriate than a number based on, I don't know where yours came from, Zillow or something like that.
And it was not the average, which is what this is, it was the median, which is a different calculation.
Correct. But also, it's kind of based on an assumption that there actually is a relationship between taxable value and 50% of market value, and there really isn't anymore.
Right.
There hasn't been in some time.
Okay, but I think the reason why I switched it, not only in terms of the dollar amounts, but also the way it was characterized was, a lot of people don't understand there's a difference between taxable value and what your house is worth.
Right.
Most of us do, but not everybody does. And so in my version, I said, if you've got a house worth this, and I just picked a number at random, and I used the median number because I thought it was in the middle somewhere, this is how much, if this is how much your house is worth, hypothetically, this is how much you would pay. And I know that there's not a direct comparison between SEV and you know, what your house might be worth on the real estate market, but I'm concerned that people don't understand the concept of taxable value versus home worth value.
It is a number that we send to them every year, and it does appear on their tax bills.
Yes.
And we did send everybody tax bills this time, even if they were being
Right. paid
directly by the mortgage company.
Right.
So it is a number that they should have available to them, or they could look it up. Well, I know you understand the problem with the relationship of values is even under the best of circumstances, with a new assessment on a property that just sold, our values tend to be about 18 months behind the market.
Yeah.
But if you have a property that hasn't sold in a number of years, the taxable value will be a far cry from 50% of market value.
Yeah, and that's certainly true in the case of our house, because we've been there for 30-some years, so, yeah, there's a huge gap in between. So I guess I don't know what the solution is. I think it's appropriate to put a number in there so that people have some frame of reference. I guess I just am not sure what the ideal way is to do it. I don't know if anybody else has any suggestions.
Commissioner Douglas?
So it was suggested in the audience that we provide people with a link to a place where they can find out what their taxable value is. And since we're already referring them to romy.gov/transit, is there a central URL where people can go to enter their address and find out their taxable value?
Yes.
Then I think we should put that link on that page. I think that's even though people sometimes don't get it, you're right, they don't understand taxable value versus market value. I mean, this is objective information that I think we can all agree on as the basis for the millage. So I kind of think it's the only way to go. And I acknowledge the fact that there are people there who don't have access to the internet. But they're gonna have they have our phone numbers, they've got City Hall's phone numbers. We'll all be happy to field their questions. I have a couple of other changes to the letter, if I may. It was mentioned again during public comment, and I observed this also, that the phrase, the transit system would be operated by SMART or a private transportation company, that the private transportation company was not one of the options that the task force recommended. So I'd recommend striking the phrase "or a private transportation company." The plural of buses is B-U-S-E-S, not B-U-S-S-E-S. Buses with two S's is kissing. I would also say that, or suggest that the bullet point, the location of local transit stops within Royal Oak will be determined by a survey of community residents and businesses. I'd like that to say a study. A survey is a specific tool, and we may or may not conclude that a survey is the best way to collect that information. And then to just make sure that in different iterations, this has been removed, that the actual language of the ballot item eliminate the two words "fixed route" in the last line.
That's already been done here.
Okay, I'm working with earlier drafts.
Yep.
Commissioner Macy.
So I agree with that. I think putting the URL in there, and then also it was mentioned, and then it will be $1.25 per $1,000 of your home's value when you do that calculation. And then also giving the number to the city treasury, saying if you don't have access to the internet, you can call this number to get the taxable value of your home.
Oh, yeah.
So like all in one bullet to get the information about how much it would cost each. So get rid of this one about that has the actual number in there, and instead provide the URL, provide the cost per $1,000, and provide the number to the city treasurer department. And then, so I think most of the issues that were brought up in public comment were addressed already or have been addressed now. One thing that was mentioned is having some mention that there will be a fare, that there is likely to be a fare involved in this system. I don't have the wording worked out for that.
Well, if I may,
Yeah.
a possible addition would be a sentence that says additional funding would come from SMART, state and local funds, and from fares paid by riders.
Yes.
Yes.
And then I also.
Sorry, where do you wish that to go?
At the bottom.
Another bullet point?
Bottom bullet point, yeah.
Between the last two, I imagine.
Yeah.
And then I also feel that we should talk about removing the last bullet point here, because it was mentioned that what we have on that webpage is more, it's from the Transit Task Force, which is definitely promoting the system, and directing them to that page could be seen as a promotion of the system as well. So, I mean, if we do it, I think we either need to rephrase and state what it is that you'll find at that page, or remove it entirely. Like, this is to give them the information they need. So referring them to a webpage that promotes the system, maybe too much.
I agree with that.
Commissioner LeVasseur.
I think we need to be very careful on how much detail we put in here. There is a significant opposition to these millages, as you noticed from public comment tonight. I think what we ultimately want is an informed electorate, and our role simply should be to make sure that people are aware that these will be on the ballot. The task is then for them to do the research and determine whether they support or don't support these proposals. There's certainly going to be plenty of information out there that they can get. I see this as less of an issue for the absentees because just by the nature of that, those individuals will receive the ballot, will have the opportunity to give it a good glance over and do the research before they vote. Really, the target here would be those that show up the day of polls that may not have seen their entire ballot. And I think we have to keep that in mind. So I know the intent or desire was to get this out before the absentee ballots goes out. I don't see that as important. If we need a little bit more time to review this, then we should do that. But I do agree with the comments that have been made for the most part at this table about putting links in there so that people can see what their own taxable value is and not directing people to any specific links that may be promoting this proposal.
Commissioner Dubak?
So the link we're referring to is the city's link about, that has the details on the proposal? Is that the link we're talking about? I feel like if that's what we're saying is gonna be done with the dollars, there's value in that, but people will find their way there if they wanna research it. The only thing that jumps out at me as far as the edits we're making is we specifically, and I think Commissioner LeVasseur and I were on the same page about this, we remove fixed route system because we wanted to make sure we are locking into the language of this law, of this millage, and what the city's ability was that should a future commission determine that a fixed bus route system is not the best means of public transit, that we would have the ability and the flexibility to consider other options.
It's been removed already.
That's why we took
That's
out
what I'm saying.
the top bullet
The bullet that said smart or a private vendor, I think was capturing our intent in editing the ballot language to allow for that future flexibility. But I think it's a question of, do you want residents to know what the intent of the city is with the program that's on the table, or what they're voting on allows? And I think what's more important is for them to understand what they're voting on would allow. So understanding that the vote that they're taking doesn't demand that it's a smart run system. The vote they're taking allows us to levy the mill to pay for a public transit system in the city of Royal Oak, which could, by a future commission, be determined to need to be operated by a private entity. So the language is accurate, and that's exactly why we changed it, why we removed fixed, bus route system.
Well, I would even argue not just a third party or private entity. I mean, we don't know what that constellation could be, but also that it may not be a fixed route bus system 30, 40 years from now.
Right, so I think there's two
so we
things.
wanna-
There's what we're planning on, but there's what the millage allows. And the
Right.
millage allows for the city to have funding for a public transit system.
Right.
And
whatever that may look like.
so I guess what I'm saying is it's not inaccurate to say or private, even though it's not our intent right now, but we did change the language of the ballot question to allow for that in the future. So I'm not sure which is the right way to go, given that there's the plan, then there's what you're actually voting on and what it allows.
Commissioner LeVasseur.
What if
Wait, I
we-
think I had Commissioner Perush and then Commissioner LeVasseur.
Commissioner DeBuck raises a good point. I'd forgotten about that. The fact that we wanted the language of the ballot proposal to be flexible enough so that if, 4 years from now we decide fixed route's crazy, this isn't what we need, and this doesn't work, we can go to something like the Arlington, Texas system or whatever. And the ballot language certainly would allow that. So perhaps the first bullet point needs to radically be changed to suggest that, if this millage is approved, perhaps initially it would be a fixed route system, but the city would have the flexibility to spend the money on a system that would be more efficient or more effective if it determined that that was indeed the case.
Weren't we supposed to have all these edits in a week ago, Mr. Johnson?
Well,
I'm not picking on you, Commissioner Perush. I'm more looking to the left side of the table over here.
I didn't have it in your hands a week ago either.
That's true.
No, we didn't get it in our
Right,
hands
to get it
until
before it was on the agenda.
That's true.
right before the weekend.
So, we're going to write a document by committee here. So maybe we do this. There was we have this draft in front of us right now. There were some recommendations made thus far. Maybe Mr. Johnson, you could, let's take the first bullet point out of it right now, okay? Because that one sounds like we have to have some discussion as far as, what the actual, ballot proposal will do if it's passed by voters and put into law. Let's look at the subsequent bullet points. Can you kind of recapture or restate what you've captured thus far and see if there's any significant objection to it?
What I've got in the bullet points, avoiding the first one.
After the first one, right, we'll take that one separately.
Okay. Right now, it would read, if approved, the location of local transit stops within Royal Oak will be determined by a study of community residents and businesses.
Okay. Are there any objections to that edit? Okay.
Next line hasn't been changed. If approved, the transit system would operate 7 days a week and nights and weekends.
Commissioner LeVasseur?
I guess there's potential for that to be misleading. I mean, people see nights and weekends and they're thinking, is this going to be 4 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday? Or what the plan is here. And I didn't get the impression from the proposal that was submitted to us that it would be that extensive.
Mayor.
Didn't our proposal say 7 to 11 p.m.? 7 a.m., I should say, to 11 p.m.? Or was it 6? For the school kids?
Is it even necessary for us to go there and talk about this?
Or maybe just indicate it would not be a 24, it's not likely to be a 24-hour service.
Or maybe it would have the capacity to operate 7 days a week and weekends. That you don't necessarily have to do it that way, but you would have the capacity.
With hours undetermined, hours to be determined?
Yeah.
Maybe would be better?
Yeah.
Yeah, with hours to be determined.
Yeah.
Through the study.
Well, you could add that to your bullet point that says, if approved, the location of local transit stops and the schedules within Royal Oak will be determined by a study.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you could just take out that bullet point altogether.
Location of local transit stops and hours of service.
Hours of operation?
Yeah, because it might make sense to use the funding to double down during rush hour and, slow it down after an experience curve, after a few years, and say, hey, we're just not going to do service between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m.
Yep.
And I don't want someone to pull the letter up and say.
So we've just added and hours of operation, and we scratched the next bullet point completely.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, the next one we bounced around on here, and I'm not exactly sure what we have, whether we're still putting anything in here about average value or not. But I know that we want to add a reference to the URL where you can look up your taxable value and provide a phone number for the treasurer's office.
Yeah, for exact amounts.
So do I want to leave the first part that's there right now, or do I want to remove that and just put in?
Remove.
I don't know.
The part that they're referring to the average, or
Average taxable value and an actual calculation.
Maybe something to the effect of, to determine the value you would be taxed, or to determine the amount that you would be taxed, you can go to the county website for the SEV.
Yeah,
And then list the URL, and then, or call the treasurer's office.
my feeling is we're trying to do a service here and put some information in front of the voter, right? And I think that if you just say, hey, here's a letter, go to this website, I think it's helpful to have an idea of what a mean, an average household would pay. But for more exact information, please go to this, website or call this number to find out exactly what your taxable value is, I think would be sufficient.
I vote to combine the existing language with Commissioner Macy's idea and say the taxes would amount to $1.25 per $1,000 of taxable value, and then say on the median taxable value in Royal Oak, it would be whatever the amount is, 107. I mean, I would put both of those in and then say, visit the link romy.gov
For your exact.
to find a link for your exact taxable value. That was a little wordy, wasn't it, Mr. Johnson?
Commissioner LeVasseur?
I would be more comfortable
This
if
won't
we.
be a nice, clean, short link either that we'll be sending them to. It's going to be long.
I would be more comfortable if we identify the tax is $1.25 per $1,000 of taxable value, and then basically say to find your taxable value, you can look on your tax bill, go to this link, or call the treasurer at.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that too.
You want to have people calling the treasurer's office or the assessor's office?
I was gonna just say the assessor's office, treasurer's.
That's fine.
Just gonna
Give
put you on
Mike Fournier
hold.
his number.
Move you.
But no response, Mike?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to stand in the way if we're getting consensus here, because I think, I mean, it's helpful for people just to understand a bogey, you know, is it $100, is it $1,000, is it $10? That's the only reason why I like to have the, you know, median mean in there, and that's something that we've done in the past. And I worry that if we don't
did.
do that again, does it look like the city's trying to hide something, you know what I mean?
Yeah, we did
That's
do
all.
that before.
Median is valuable information.
Yeah.
This
Or-
isn't the median.
Or you could put a graph in there, or a few values, say if your taxable value is this, your taxable value is that, your taxable value is that. But I don't believe there's a need for that. I believe most folks have a pretty good sense for what their taxable value is.
Based on the emails that I get on a regular basis, I'm question that.
I kind of like the idea of a chart where you have three values of your home, then next to them the taxable value, then next to them the millage cost for those three homes. I don't know. Kind of like that idea. Don's looking at me like that's
think
too
we
much.
just-
Not following what you,
Well, just instead of having the median number here, or the mean number, you'd have the mean maybe plus 20%, minus 20%.
And then, but I was also including like home value and then taxable value because people I think
there is no relationship.
Yeah, there's no
Okay, I
relationship.
I understand, but there's some examples you could give, right? I mean, I guess you
think-
can't because you can't
And
just
have
do
two identical homes sitting side by
Right.
side in taxable values that are 30% apart.
Okay, I guess I was trying to bring attention to the fact that they're not the same, and I think people don't know that. But you're right, that's not gonna work.
But I say the mean, it's like, okay, well, taxable
There actually
value.
was a time when you used to be able to just cut your,
Thing in half, yeah,
and that was reasonably accurate, but that's not the case anymore.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
So I think everybody agrees on this one. We want to put a link or some sort of reference to type in your own number or call the assessor's office, right? And then the question is, do we keep the median or the mean number in there because it has been past precedent and it does give people some sort of idea, you know, the gravity of it if it's $100.
You want a motion? Does that help?
Well,
Or just a
We're still
straw
muddling
poll?
through.
just a straw poll. Anyone strongly object to that?
Object to a straw poll or?
Just to keep in the median in there, but keep the other information to be sure to go and calculate on your own what the amount would be.
Yeah, I would be inclined not to include the median. I think it actually could cause more confusion than anything. Just basically direct people, here's how you can find out what your taxable value is.
You want to do a vote just to see if we include it in the letter?
And will we include the median?
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Douglas. Any support? Support by Commissioner Dubak. We've discussed it.
Well, I
Any
have
other
a discussion. I have
discussion?
a discussion to say. I mean, I would like to put it in there, but I would prefer more that this table agree on the letter. So I'm gonna be voting
I think
against,
we'll get to that.
well,
Well, if we vote to put it in, then, you know, we'll vote to agree to the letter.
understand.
Yep. Okay. Commissioner Dubak?
And what if we just do three? What if you do like, you know, the 25th percentile, the median, and the 75th percentile, and people will get an idea of the range. The point is for people to have an understanding of how this is gonna affect them. I think people at a glance are gonna understand, okay, I understand where I fall on this, versus everyone going to look up and then do the math to figure
No
out
one's gonna do
exactly what their assessment's gonna be. I think people wanna understand where this is landing. Is it costing me $500 a year or $100 a year? I mean, and if the difference, if, you know, 80 versus 100 is what matters to you, then you can go look up your thing and do the math. But I think if you did 25th percentile, 50th percentile, 75th percentile, and just put a dollar figure on that, and we can do that. I think there's value to that for people to understand, if people understand what percentile means.
Oops.
Let's look with that.
I like that.
Commissioner Prush?
As someone who hates math, the more numbers there are, the more confused people is gonna get. You put in more than one example, and I'm not even comfortable putting in one example, you're gonna just confuse people to death. I think putting in, it's gonna cost you $1.25, $1.25 for every $1,000 of taxable value of your house. I think that's a great thing to include. For example, if your taxable value is $83,000, this is how much it's gonna be. I can see doing that.
Yeah.
But no more numbers than that, no more.
And I think that's what we have on right now, right?
Yep.
Is to basically state that with here and direct people to the website.
Yes, absolutely.
Call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Wait.
Say here the hands of the nays.
This isn't, wait, what? I thought we were saying no numbers.
What did you
This
do?
includes the mean value and the subsequent tax rate, or tax level.
Wait, I'm confused too.
Including the 1.25 for $1,000 of taxable value.
Right.
And then saying, for example, if your taxable value is this, which is the median, this is how much you would pay.
Okay, make that motion.
I will
That was
make a
already
motion.
made.
That's what we're voting on.
Well, you didn't say that.
I
You
did.
said just the median.
Earlier.
Well, let's
Oh.
see, how many people voted for it?
I voted
1,
for
2,
it.
3. Pat, did you vote for it?
She didn't vote.
I wasn't sure.
How do we do
I'm on board
this?
with what Pat's saying, is my point.
All right, Mr. Gillum, mental gymnastics, how do we do this? Just do another motion?
Well, it failed for lack of support on 3-3 anyway, so we need a new motion, right?
Yeah.
Oh, so Pat she
I
didn't
will now
abstain.
make a motion, since the other one died, that we say in this bullet point that taxpayers will pay $1.25 for every $1,000 of taxable value of their property. For example, if the taxable value of your property is $85,577, which is the median taxable value in the city, you would pay this much the first year.
To find your taxable value, look here.
Yes, to find your taxable value, go to da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da,
www.romy.longstringofcharacters.com.
or call the city assessor at da-da.
Second.
Okay.
Okay. Motion on the table, discussion. Everybody know what the motion is this time? Commissioner Dubak?
Yes.
Wonderful. All right, Commissioner LeVasseur?
I did like Commissioner DeBuck's thought as far as the 25th percentile, 75th percentile more. I think, I guess my preference would be not to put in any median here, and basically say, here's what it is, look up your own taxable value, you can do the math yourself. But Commissioner DeBuck's recommendation is superior to just putting one number in.
Commissioner DeBuck?
I think for me, it would be, but to Commissioner Prush's point, the more numbers, the more complicated. If people understand, here's an average, that's factual. There's a median average taxable value in the city. That's a fact. That's not manufactured. So we say, here's the median average. To find yours, and it gives you a starting point. You're either higher or lower than the median.
There's one person that it'll be exactly relevant for.
Correct. Everyone else is going to be higher.
Everyone else will be different.
Maybe not.
Well, it's a mean, right?
It's a mean, it's a mean. It's
So
not
there
a
is one
median.
Oh, I thought we were using median. We should use median.
We should use median.
And for those of us who spent 35 years or so since we've had to figure out the difference between median and mean,
We'll bring Jackson in to tell us.
please help us out.
So median is like,
Dead-
you line up all the
Mean is
numbers.
The arithmetic average, which you normally think of as average. Median is if you put a list of all the properties in order and find the midpoint of that list.
So which one are we talking about here?
I think you should be using mean. I think median is,
Median means.
Well,
you're
I have a
either
whole
higher or
story about averages that are not
We don't want to
marketing.
hear.
Yeah, you don't want to hear it at this table. Some of you have heard it offline.
lower.
But I do agree median is a better number.
median is a better number?
Is the median dramatically different
I
than the mean?
disagree. Oh, it could be hugely different.
No, it can be. I'm asking in the case of our taxable value.
The first problem I'm gonna have is, I have no idea what the median is, and it's gonna take a while to figure it out.
Okay.
Yeah, no,
We
there's.
do the mean.
We'll let you go mean.
What if we just said the average taxable value in the city of Royal Oak is 85,577?
I think people
what
understand
that
average.
Average, yeah.
Yes.
I think that's taking the geometry and the trigonometry and the
takes it
geometry
from-
and whatever, calculus.
$100 to 107 to 112, whatever, it's not gonna make a material difference between median and mean.
All right.
All right, so, I don't even know, did we call for the vote yet? I don't think we did on this one. All right, I'm gonna call for the vote. All those,
Make sure I understand what the motion is.
okay, so, we are gonna change that bullet point, revise it to say it's 1.25 per, maybe, Mr. Johnson, you've been actually writing it down, maybe if you just read it, that would be easier than me recapping it.
I will try.
I can't read your writing, right? I do it from
I'm
here.
not
and
sure
try
I
to look very
can.
smart.
Will Mr. Johnson read the entire website address?
I actually don't know what that is right now. Taxpayers will pay $1.25 per $1,000 of taxable value. For example, if your taxable value is $85,577, which is the average taxable value in Royal Oak, your cost would be $107 per year. You can find your own taxable value on your tax bill. Notice of assessment, I added that, I know nobody said it here, but it's another document everybody gets. At the following URL, or at this URL, and I don't know what that is right now, but we'll find it by morning, or by calling the assessing department and providing that phone number.
That sounds
Did it
much
say
better.
anything about the 125 of the 1,000?
Yeah,
Okay,
in the
good.
beginning.
Sorry.
It's almost tomorrow.
Two
No worries.
sentences is too long to be.
It's only
All right.
11.
Just an average day.
Just a mean day,
Come on,
an
go on,
average
your
day.
Oh, Lord.
All right. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, the motion passes. So both the mean and median were ayes on this particular vote.
Oh, no.
We're gonna average on this particular vote.
But you're better than average.
I think so. I think this is above average, Commissioner.
Sure, we weren't at the
Definitely not last.
90th
Mediocre also
percentile.
means average.
Okay. The next line, we have had no discussion of. It says, if approved, the millage would be for a period of 5 years. Any renewals would require voter approval. And the next one, we have had some discussion about, but no conclusion. More information about the proposed transit system can be found at romy.gov/transit. You want that gone, or do you want that to stay, or do you want it changed?
Gone.
Gone.
Well, I'm going to say scrub it. I mean, there is information in there that is, you know, I think has an advocate tone, but I do think we can pull that out and leave just the facts, ma'am.
So we just eliminate that one. We need to eliminate some things to make room for this extra text so that it still fits on 2 pages.
Question. You're talking about scrubbing the website.
The website,
Not scrubbing.
not the document, the
not the
website.
document.
Oh, boy.
No, but scrubbing the bullet point that says more information about the proposed transit system can be found
That's
at
not what she said.
romy.gov.
No, that's not what I'm
That's
saying.
not
I'm
what she
saying,
means.
leave that in, leave the romy.gov/transit up, but edit it.
So, just a point of thought, if it's taken us nearly 45 minutes to edit 2 lines in this, can you imagine what we'd have to do for the website, what's advocating, what's not?
I think we have to, that's why we have staff.
But then,
Well, except
why are
for-
we editing this letter for our staff too?
I don't know that you'll get there.
No?
I mean, if people want to look it up, they'll go to the website and they'll see. I don't think we have to put that in here.
Oh, but you're not going to take it off the website?
I'm saying that we don't need to include this link in this letter. And we're just opening up another can of worms, saying, let's go back to the website and let's put that under the magnifying glass and seeing what should be changed there. The practical thing is simply to remove that bullet point.
But just to leave the website as it is and let people find it.
Yeah, so if they're searching for more information.
Yeah, I'm not proposing any changes to the website. Frankly, I have not put it under the magnifying glass to suggest anything there.
But you're taking out the bullet point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, the next one I'm going to need some help from Char with, but this was an additional bullet point.
Read your bullet point.
What was my bullet point?
Additional funding would come from.
Oh, see, I
you
got
had
it.
a list
Hang on.
that ended with and passenger fares.
Additional funding would come from SMART, state and local funds, and from fares paid by riders.
State and federal funds, you mean? State, local, and
Oh.
federal funds?
Are there federal funds? Yes, I think there are.
See what the website
I
says.
believe there is.
Yeah, sorry, state and federal.
Commissioner LeVasseur?
I think it's problematic to add that language unless we're giving people some sense of what the percentages are. I know 5% is anticipated for the fares. I'm not sure what the breakdown is to the local taxes versus the state and federal. I just don't recall that offhand.
But it's all a plan, anyways, right? I mean, we don't know, it's ebbing and flowing, what the fare box might be, what it might not be if it passes. So just to account and say, look, there are multiple sources of funding for the project, and if I guess we eliminated the.
Yeah, but we're also creating the potential for a misunderstanding what those allocations are going to be here. And I'm thinking, go more basic on this. I would prefer not to add something additional that just may cause more confusion. Our role should be extremely limited here so that we are erring on the side of being cautious and making sure we're not advocating here. And that means our main objective should be alert people that this is on the ballot so that they can do their due diligence on it.
Commissioner DeBuck?
I somewhat disagree. Yes, we should be empowering people to do their due diligence, but we do have facts that we're the credible source to present them with. Debating whether or not it's the right move for the community, that's up to the voters to determine, but saying this is what we've put forward, this is what it costs, this is what it's going to do, that's not advocating, that's saying what we've put forward. That's not advocating.
Okay, but we're choosing what facts we want to share. And being the gatekeeper, even if there may be the appearance of being simply unbiased, by choosing which facts to share, you are influencing. And so I don't know that there's any way around that. I mean, we could share that, that only 5% of the fares is coming from, is anticipated to come from 5% of the cost anticipated to come from fares. That's factual. That's what the task force gave us. All right. But certainly someone could consider that to be advocating by indicating that's such a low number. So I think we have to be extremely cautious here, particularly given that we're spending $10,000 of taxpayers' funds on this. So I would err on the side of being more cautious on this.
Commissioner Perush?
But I think we all agree that we need to say something about the fact that the riders will pay fares.
Yeah.
Irrespective of the other sources of funding. And then it got broadened out to include state and federal and all that kind of stuff. I think we can just narrow it down to acknowledge that, riders will pay fares.
Maybe.
Proposed in line with smart fares.
It's proposed, I mean, just like the first paragraph we're gonna go back to, that we have to adjust because, the way it's written, to defray, operate, maintain a public transit. Yeah, it's not written into the actual proposal that folks would have to pay fares. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, that's all, you have the plan, and then you have the ballot proposal, and the ballot proposal, supports the plan, but the plan is also agile, right?
Yeah.
So how do we, if we put in there that, it's expected to be 5% fair, I think that's almost as, misleading as some of the things we were talking about up in the front, where we're acknowledging that it's only forever a fixed route system when there is flexibility in it. But if we do cite and say, hey, there's multiple sources of funding that, might be part of this, which include federal, state, and fare box, it might be, worth mentioning how those are allocated and how they're used. It could be 0 fare box, it could be 10%, we don't know until, And it could change over time and over the years.
What if we simply said it?
Commissioner Macy, then Commissioner Gibbs, then Commissioner LeVasseur.
What if we simply said passenger fares are anticipated? And that way, we're leaving out the state and federal funds, the local funds, the county funds, wherever they may be coming from. But it is anticipated that there would be fares for all riders. That way, it's cut and dry.
But isn't it more factual to say that we'll get state and federal funding than it is to say that passenger fares are anticipated? You know what I mean? Because we know that to be certain. Well, I mean, I guess they could cut it at any time, but.
But again, we don't know. I'm just trying to be as clear as mud on this as we can get. Rider fares or ridership fares are anticipated.
What do you have right now, Don, based on what we had talked about before?
Right now, I've got additional funding would come from SMART, state and federal funds, and fares paid by riders.
What if we
What's wrong
put,
with
what if we put fares in front of it and then the state and local funds and SMART bus?
Just reverse the order?
Yeah, just reverse the order.
And put the word may come from as opposed to
Yeah,
with
there you
certainty
go.
come from. That gives us the flexibility to structure the funding that's most appropriate every year. Because it could vary from year to year. All of a sudden, next year, the federal funds might be gone.
Or it might triple.
Yeah,
Probably not next year, maybe 3 years.
yeah.
Okay, do we want to move fares to the front of the list?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, can you read it, Mr. Johnson?
Additional funding may come from fares paid by riders, SMART, state and federal funds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any strong objections to that? All right. So that was the hard one.
Well, we've still got the first one that you just kind of punted on to begin with.
Yep.
Wanna go back to
It's the
that
second
now?
hardest one. Okay, so the transit system would be operated by SMART or a private transportation company.
Scratch that.
So, Mayor?
Yeah. Commissioner
We
Dubus?
say, so one factual bullet is, transportation system will be operated by a third party. Second bullet is, the plan on record is to enter a new agreement with SMART, or the plan, the current.
For 2019,
For 2019.
right?
The plan for
To import
2019 is to enter a new agreement with SMART to operate the system. So that leaves both of those things as factual, people understand that, because what I don't want is, like with Normandy Oaks, right, we had a plan, like a sketch of a plan, but then the ballot language was what it was, and then we could actually go forward initiating the plan. And folks didn't understand that what we were talking about before wasn't necessarily what they voted on. Like what we voted on was, to sell the 10 acres to get the money to build the park. This is voting on a mill for public transit, for which there's currently a plan, but they're not voting that plan into law. So I think if you say, the system will be operated by a third party, the current plan, or the plan for 2019 is to enter an agreement with SMART to operate a bus system.
Proposal for 2019.
Exactly. That's something along those lines. I don't know, is that too convoluted? It's getting late.
I like it.
Sure, if we actually do enter into a contract with SMART as expected, it will be more than for just 1 year.
So could we say the plan will commence in the transit system would commence in 2019 with SMART as the operator?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
The current plan is.
Proposal.
The
Proposal.
Oh, my goodness.
is
Sorry.
to-
You just said it and I already got it.
Do we want to use the word will or it's anticipated? I mean, that's not,
Is anticipated, yeah.
Current proposal recommends, or the current proposal is that SMART will.
So the proposal approved by the commission, or
No.
it's not necessarily approved until the millage is
Right.
approved,
Right.
so.
What'd you just say?
anticipated.
Yeah, anticipated.
That's a good word.
Yeah.
Read the whole thing again?
how about we say, it is anticipated that the transit system would be operated by SMART,
Beginning in 2019.
beginning in 2019, period. That's your first sentence. Not the city. So people don't know the difference that SMART isn't part of the city or anything like that.
And then what was it?
The plan, accordingly, it is anticipated that transit buses would travel on fixed main routes or major roads within the city.
We need the word fixed.
Well, it's accurate of what we anticipate.
Okay.
Is it important, though?
Yeah.
What was the sentence Commissioner Dubak had a little minute ago that was good? You had two sentences, and now we're working on the second. You had a first one.
Party will be operated by a third party.
Transit system will be operated by a third
Okay.
party.
Oh, yeah. And then we have this, is anticipated that in 2019.
Do we add, I heard recommendation that we maybe add a sentence or a bullet point that says that, you know, the millage, or approval of the millage does not bind Royal Oak to, you know, utilize a fixed route system, but the plan in 2019 is this, or is that too much?
Too much.
Too much, and I suspect that if we do approve a contract with SMART, that that will take anything else off the table.
No, I'm thinking like in 2030. I guess that would be a new renewal. I think in the foreseeable next 5 years, it's going to be SMART.
Yeah, you're not gonna.
But if the initial contract is with SMART, it will be a fixed route system, because that's all
Yeah.
SMART
Right.
will do.
Okay.
So what do you got, Mr. Johnson, based on that very simple?
Right now, all I
feedback?
have is it is anticipated the transit system will be operated by SMART and will commence operations in 2019. I'm not clear as to whether we want this fixed route stuff or not. And if we do, is the language that's there okay?
I suspect that's enough.
Yeah, I think it is too.
Most people probably assume it would be a fixed route.
Because SMART doesn't do anything else.
Because, yeah, because.
Yeah, well, I think the only confusion that people might get is, wait a minute, is this the SMART millage? You know, do we have to tell them it's connecting into the SMART system
Yeah,
as part of the plan, but
no.
Okay.
everybody good with that? So,
Sidewalks?
sidewalks?
Oh, yes.
We have to fix at least the bullet point about the money thing to parallel what the language is
Oh, yeah.
on the transit system.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically just make it sort of the same statement.
The average SEV is X and.
Yeah, just use the same bullet point.
Yeah.
Yeah, just
Oh,
put
yeah,
it,
completely the same.
Yeah.
Just,
We made it agnostic to the mill.
So I would always also suggest that we, instead of saying flag, we say dollar, whatever, however much it is per, and I don't know what the size of a square, but is there a standard size of a flag?
is it 4 by 4?
That's what I think, but I
what I
may have
think
just
too.
made that up.
I don't think it's perfectly square. I think it's, isn't it?
I thought it's a little bit rectangular.
It's rectangular. It's at least 6 by 4.
I think people understand squares and quotations better than they understand flags.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And then I would also say for,
Or you just, pardon me, maybe you just define what a flag is.
No,
A flag is a 5 by 4.
No, that takes,
too much,
Too much.
no.
I've already got a space issue on this page. And
per section, would that be sufficient?
Per sidewalk section?
I think section's more confusing than flag.
Yeah.
Square.
I mean, I can take it down and put a per square foot number instead.
No.
I thought
No.
people related to the.
No,
That's more
no.
math. Format.
$155.75 per concrete square.
Put square in quotes.
Yeah, I think that's right.
People understand what a square is. They know what you're talking about, even if it's not technically a square.
Even if it's an oval, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I think I agree with that.
Well,
Okay.
and then I would say for 4-inch deep concrete
Yeah, that's good.
and 155.75 per square for 6-inch deep concrete.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Are there any spelling errors, Commissioner Douglas?
Not that I,
Any kissing language?
no.
Any other thoughts?
So I have last year, the cost of sidewalk repair for individual property owners was $130.75 per quote square for 4-inch deep concrete, and $155.75 per square, again in quotes, for 6-inch deep concrete. And let's
Say driveway.
I think just
squares.
driveway.
Actually, I think just say driveway.
Driveway, take flags.
Get those
out of it.
letters back.
Yeah.
It's like writing a term paper.
So I know Don doesn't want to add to this, but there did seem to be confusion about why we were even doing this when we were done with the sidewalk program. So is it worth?
Sidewalk program's starting up again next year.
Look, Don, you don't have to tell me. I'm just saying maybe we should be in this letter. Because I see it online all the time.
Really ever done.
I see that online all the time, as people are saying, I just paid for my sidewalks, I don't have to do this again, but you do, because it's gonna come around again. So I think having some indication that this is a cyclical process of doing this, and I don't know, I hadn't thought of it until the public comment, but now it's too late for me to have words, but words.
You can add words. We're
Well, but the next bullet point says currently the
We're already at
sidewalks
the
are
point that we're
repaired
adding
on a
pages.
6-year cycle.
Yeah. You think that's enough? Do you think that makes sense? Like a repeating 6-year cycle or a continuous 6-year cycle?
Maybe
or-
continuous.
Cycle says it, right? But I'm
Yeah.
just,
The word continuous actually helps there quite a bit.
okay.
Six-year continuous.
We changed sidewalk to pedestrian walkway. Just kidding.
It's too many letters, there's not enough room on the paper.
It's gonna be
I
ready.
have a feeling I'm gonna eat that gavel.
Be some longer.
Just to mess with Don. Commissioner Macy.
Move approval of the letter as with all the changes up until this point.
Motion by Commissioner Macy, support by Commissioner Dubak. Discussion.
We already had that.
Yep, we already had it. Hopefully Coco's not watching. Be in trouble again.
I saw her the other day, she hasn't been.
Oh, good.
You're safe.
We're that boring.
Jinxed us.
Mr. Johnson, you understand? I think everyone understands these are pretty simple edits.
Are we going through the rest of this or not?
No, we decided we're good.
Well, there's a motion on the table, friend, for the edits that were put forward.
Okay.
All right. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Believe it or not, that brings us to the end of tonight's agenda, notwithstanding any other important business for the city of Royal Oak. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Commissioner LeVasseur.
Move to adjourn.
We have a motion by Commissioner LeVasseur to adjourn. We have a support by Commissioner Macy. Discussion on the motion to adjourn. No discussion? With none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. We are adjourned.